Good afternoon, everyone. Before I call the meeting to order, I'd like to recognize that today is Pink Shirt Day. That's why we're all wearing pink shirts here. And Pink Shirt Day is where we wear pink shirts to raise awareness about bullying. And also, I'd like to take this time to thank the staff from the ACRD for participating in the Coldest Night of the Year walk and helping to raise money for Sage Haven Society. You have my heartfelt thanks. So I'd like to call the meeting to order at 1:30. Acknowledge and recognize that we're conducting this meeting on the unceded territories of the Shuswap First Nations. We also have directors calling in from other territories, and I would like to acknowledge and recognize those territories and express our gratitude and our respect. Notice to attendees and delegates that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed to YouTube on the Regional District website. And for those who are watching online, please send any questions or comments to responses@acrd.bc.ca, and we'll look at those questions and comments at the end of the meeting. So we'll do introductions, and I'll start. My name is Debbie Haggard. I am the City Appointed Representative from the City of Port Alberni and Vice Chair of the Regional District. Chair Jack is not able to be with us today, so I will be chairing the meeting. So we'll start. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Heather Zenner, Manager of Administrative Services. Good afternoon, Cynthia Dick, General Manager of Administrative Services.
Good afternoon, Alex Dyer, Planning Manager of the ACRD.
Shari Minions, Director, Mayor for the City of Port Alberni and Director for the City of Port Alberni.
Mike Sparrow, Regional Director for Cherry Creek.
Terry Fong, Chief Financial Officer for the Regional District.
Ken McBride, Chair of the Air Quality Council.
Beta Sega, Area C Director. Thank you.
Jack McClellan, Alternate Director for Beaufort, and I realize it's Pink Shirt Day, but I don't have one. I didn't think it was environmentally sound to buy a shirt just to wear one day, so I do support anti-bullying.
Thanks, Jack. Tom Steer, appointed director from the district.
Daniel Sayan, the CAO for the ACRD.
Thank you. For those who are on Zoom, I will be calling you. If you could please introduce yourself and where you're from. Director Roth.
Susan Roth for Beaver Creek.
Director Beckett.
Hi, Bob Beckett, District or Area A, Banfield. Good afternoon.
Director Cote.
Good afternoon, Kalama Penny Cote. I'm the Electoral Area Director for Sprout Lake on the ACRD.
Director Johnson.
Afternoon, Kirsten Johnson, Director for the Toquat Nation.
Director Mastrangelo.
Hello, Havana Mastrangelo, Director from Ucluelet First Nation, and joining you from Campbell River, traditional territory of the Wewak, Pamalco, and Wewakai.
Thank you. I think I got everybody. So first on is the approval of the agenda. Is there any additions from directors? Is there any additions from the corporate officer?
None, thank you.
Could I motion to get to approve the agenda as presented? Moved by Director Sparrow, seconded by Director Sega. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. So first on the agenda is our 2024 to 2028 ACRD financial plan, and our Chief Financial Officer, Terry Fong, will be doing the presentation. Whenever you're ready, Terry.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So we are going to run through the draft financial plan quickly today, not at 2.5 hour speed like we did last time with the board, but more in a summarized version. And we will take questions at the end from both public and the board. So as you know, that our draft financial plan is for a 5-year period, the current +4. We have to talk about proposed expenditures, revenues, as well as our transfers in and out of our reserve funds. We have to be adopted by March 31st, and there is a large document that has both the narrative as well as the numbers aspect of the financial plan on our website. And I would encourage you to take a look into them if you're looking for more details. At the regional district, the services are independent. We cannot transfer revenues and expenditures between services. Areas are only charged for the services they are provided, and this allocation must include staff time. So we've been doing a lot of public consultation in the last couple of weeks. We attended the Banfield Community Affairs monthly meeting. We were at the Sprout Lake Community Association AGM the other day. We've been out to District of Tofino. We're at City of Port Alberni on Monday. But we also have an open house this coming Sunday, March 3rd from 2 till 5 at the Cherry Creek Hall for the entire region. It's not just for Cherry Creek residents. And we'll have an open house format for a while. And then at 3:30, we will do a presentation of the plan and lots of chance to ask staff questions or inquire about things. There will also be some feedback forms if people are wanting to provide feedback. And again, we have an email set up as budget@acrd.bc.ca if you'd like to provide feedback in that manner. So our budget is approximately the same as the prior year at $29.4 million. The requisition, though, has increased about $1 million to $11.8 million. Of that $1 million, 531 is related to the West Coast Transit Service, which is going to have implementation here at the beginning of April. So we have about approximately $7 million of grant funding, and then the difference is really like user fees and tipping fees at our landfills. Today, I decided to do a top 10 kind of format. So what are the top 10 things that I feel like are important in changes to our financial plan from last year? So the first is the adoption of our new strategic plan. So this is a 2024 to 2027 strategic plan with the 4 focus areas of planning for a resilient and livable region. Number 2 is managing our assets and infrastructure. Number 3, partnerships and communications. And 4, advocacy and service. And again, the full strategic plan document is also available on our website. The second highlight of the budget would be the new housing legislation, as well as the official community plan updates. So there is some new housing legislation that was released in the fall of 2023, which is going to keep the planning department busy to ensure that our zoning bylaw and our official community plans adhere to the new guidelines. But also they are going to start a process of redoing all 6 electoral area strategic or official community plans, starting with Sprout Lake and South Long Beach here in 2024. My mouse is not working. The next highlight would be the emergency planning programs. So again, new legislation that came out in the late 2023, and it's really recognizing the 4 phases of emergency preparedness, which is emergency preparedness, response, recovery, as well as mitigation. So really just looking to learn more about this legislation and the regulations that are going to follow, but looking for more consultation and collaboration, business continuity plans, and updating our existing plans. West Coast Transit implementation. We've been working on this service, I think, since 2017. We're hoping to have the buses start rolling here in April. So lots happening in this service this year and continuing to build what hopefully will be a solid transportation system for the West Coast. And then at some point get BC Transit hopefully to come to the table. Solid waste management. So we have 2 waste sheds or landfills, one in the Alberni Valley, one on the West Coast. And we are doing a solid waste management plan update. So a lot of community engagement going to happen to figure out what our new strategies for waste reduction will be moving forward. Once we get this finalized, it then needs to be submitted to the province. Number 6, the Long Beach Airport land use plan. So really taking some time to look forward about what we want this service to look like moving forward over the next 20 years, I would say. So we're looking for a master land use plan, continued discussions with Taloquit, and the signing of a memorandum of understanding. And then also looking at the infrastructure, including the water system and fire suppression abilities to support what those possible uses might be moving forward. Number 7 is the Alberni Valley Aquatics Facility. So this is a proposed service. It's done its needs and benefits assessment. We are this afternoon, talking about the options that were part of the phase 2. And now we may be proceeding based on direction today to a phase 3, where we start talking about a potential service establishment, the governance model, which may lead to a referendum if there's agreement on how we move forward. Number 8, I would say, are the Bamfield projects. Bamfield is facing a time of what we anticipate to be some large growth. So we have a development plan, which is going to look at the servicing requirements moving forward. In addition to that, there's been a lot of work done in the liquid waste management aspect, and probably a referendum or gearing up for a referendum later this year on a proposed service. And also the water line that connects East and West Bamfield is needing replacement, and we have some grant money to complete that project in this next probably 18 months. Beaver Creek also has a couple of major focus areas. So there is a study for about an alternate water supply. We'll have another water main upgrade. And then in terms of the fire department, a feasibility study to consider whether the fire hall is the correct location, accessibility, space, covers all the safety concerns. And finally, this is not our service at this time, but we are part of this conversation as the Cherry Creek Waterworks District has a discussion with their community about whether they would like to convert to become a service of the regional district. So there's a lot of work being done by an independent consultant right now with the Cherry Creek Waterworks and ACRD staff combined. And there is a community open house that is scheduled for March the 14th at Cherry Creek Hall from 7 to 9 p.m. with that consultant, with a presentation at 7:30, and staff from both the ACRD and Cherry Creek will be on hand to help answer any of the public's questions. So that was a very brief, probably the briefest lowdown I have done of this plan, but I would encourage anyone who's watching online, if you're wanting more information, there was a very in-depth presentation at the Committee of the Whole on February 14th that you could refer to if you're looking for more details, or going to that full version of the financial plan. And that is it for me. I'm happy to answer questions, and I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Terry. And I just really want to reinforce to the public that if you have questions or comments, please send them to budget@acrd.bc.ca. It's really important that you express your opinion, concerns, questions, and they will be responded to as quickly as the staff can get to them. And that was a very brief presentation, but full of information, lots of projects going on within the regional district. Is there any questions online at this time, Heather? If not, I'll go to the board for questions. Not from me, thank you. Okay. Does anybody from the board have questions? Director McClellan and then Director, Director Cote.
Yeah, thanks. And I thank you for a very brief thing. I was afraid I might be getting home about 2 o'clock tomorrow morning. Just one quick question. You did make a comment that you're starting this year with the OCP. Was that just Sprout Lake and Long Beach, was it?
Yes, it's the Long Beach and Sprout Lake. And so it's going to be all 6 OCPs over a 3-year period. I will let Alex, if that's okay, Chair, to speak what the other order of the other 4 is.
No, I wasn't too, you're just doing the 1 or 2 at a time, and that's fine. Thank you.
Director Cote.
Thank you. Just through the chair, I'd like to say thank you very much to Ms. Fong for the presentation at the Sprout Lake Community Association AGM. It was very well received, really a great presentation, and really lets the community know exactly what's happening with our funds and how the budget is rolling out according with our strategic plan. And also a big thank you to Mr. Erg for his participation and information sharing with the community. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? That's fantastic. You're off for the rest of the day, Terry.
That's more questions.
Okay, so next is declarations for conflict of interest and gifts exceeding $250 in value as per section 106 of the community charter. And I would like to declare a conflict with items 10.1A and B. Even though I do not vote on planning matters, the two properties border mine, so I would like to recuse myself on those items. So any of the conflicts? Seeing none, we'll go on to adoption of minutes, and there's a few here. First one is the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting held on February 9th, 2024. Is there any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion that the minutes of the Transportation Advisory Committee meeting held on February 9th, 2024 be received? Moved by Director Minion, seconded by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Go ahead.
Gotta move this thing. In there's a few motions that were made there to present things to the board of directors of the ACRD. Is that coming at the next meeting or when they decide, or it's not today that we have to debate that?
No, CEO, do you know when they're going to be coming to the board?
No, I don't have a date yet. We've been focused down on the budget, but it is noted. We have a lot of moving parts on it. Bill, it's not going to stagnate.
I want that in writing.
Well, this is recorded. It's better than writing. You can play it back in video.
Okay, so we'll try that again. All in favor? Oh, Director Sparrow.
Thank you. I think the one question you're referring to is $70,000 for the consultant study. Is that going to come back to the board for the budget? That's not what I'm concerned right now.
Is that not already in the budget?
So the 70,000 has been identified in the budget, and we have a recommendation from the committee that supports that 70,000. So that is there and supported by the committee, and it's reflected in the minutes. Beyond that, though, I think where we're going is some of the other recommendations. And yeah, as indicated, I've already had a number of side meetings with the province, as we're trying to assemble who's going to which meeting when. There's a lot of interested parties in this initiative.
Any other questions? Okay, third time lucky. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is a Board of Directors meeting, February 14th, 2024. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion that the minutes of the Board of Directors meeting held on February 14th, 2024 be adopted? Moved by Director Steer, second by Director McClellan. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is Committee of the Whole meeting, February 14th, 2024. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting held on February 14th, 2024 be received? Moved by Director Steer, second by Director Sega. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the Hospital District meeting, February 14th, 2024. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I have a motion that the minutes of Hospital District meeting held on February 14th, 2024 be received? Moved by Director Steer, second by Director McClellan. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the Agriculture Development Committee meeting, February 20th, 2024. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, could I get a motion that the minutes of the Agriculture Development Committee meeting held on February 20th, 2024 be received? Moved by Director Steer, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is the West Coast Committee meeting, February 21st, 2024. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, can I get a motion that the minutes of the West Coast Committee meeting held on February 21st, 2024 be received? Moved by Director Steer.
And then once it's seconded, any has.
Oh, second by Director Sega, and Director Cody has a question.
Sorry, on my iPad, and I'm not doing that well with getting my hand up in time. I have a question about why the hospital board minutes are included in this agenda for approval rather than with the hospital board. Thank you.
Heather?
Yeah, so they're just on the agenda to be received so that the board is informed, but they will be adopted at the hospital meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is petitions, delegations, and presentations. And first we have Mr. Ken Bride, Chair of the Port Alberni Air Quality Council, regarding current activities and plans, including draft airshed management plan. Welcome, Ken.
Thank you. I am the chair and coordinator of the Port Alberni Air Quality Council. I've been with the Air Quality Council since last July. And I want to thank the board for the opportunity to provide an overview of the Port Alberni Air Quality Council, what we do, and why it's important. I especially want to thank the board for its continued financial support in 2024. I know how important it is that taxpayer money be spent wisely, and the proper use of our funding is something we take very seriously. With the many worthwhile causes and initiatives you could spend money on, the support we've received from the ACRD for so many years is something we do not take for granted. We know we need to earn it, and I'm confident that we'll continue to do so. So let me take a moment to step back. Poor air quality is a silent killer. According to Environment and Climate Change Canada, studies have shown that air pollution is the most important environmental contributor to poor health and premature death. In Canada, thousands of hospital visits and more than 15,000 premature deaths each year are linked to air pollution. Overall in Canada, the social and economic consequences of illness and death associated with air pollution has an economic value of $120 billion per year. People who are most at risk of the effects of air pollution include older adults, young children, those who are active outdoors, those who have pre-existing health conditions, and those who live near industries or busy roadways. Again, all of this according to Environment and Climate Change Canada. Health Canada estimates that air pollution contributes an estimated 19,000 premature deaths in British Columbia. For a community with the population of the Alberni Valley, that translates to 10 premature deaths per year, as well as many hospitalizations and other health problems. And it may actually be worse than that. Port Alberni is classified as a red or orange zone under CAAQS, Canadian Ambient Air Quality Standards, for fine particulates, the most dangerous type of air pollution. In other words, our air is more hazardous than average. But the terrible human cost of air pollution does not make many headlines. That's why the Air Quality Council exists, to call attention to the problem and to take action to help solve the problem. In other words, our most important work is in public education, advocacy, and action in the trenches to move the ball forward for positive change. A good example of our public education efforts happened last fall with our air purification promotion at the Alberta District Fair. Air purification is the last line of defense when we need to be indoors during episodes of wildfire smoke or other air pollution events.
Come on in.
Air purifiers can be expensive. A more affordable option is to do it yourself, which is easily built with a box fan, a high-efficiency furnace filter, and some duct tape. No engineering project is complete without duct tape. Over the 4 days of the fair, with the cooperation of ACRD, we demonstrated how to build these air purifiers. Many fairgoers took home our 2-page guide to building the devices, and more than 100 people signed up for our draw. We gave away air purifiers to 4 lucky winners. Air purification, together with the related issue of public safe air refuges, will continue to be one of the most important areas of activity for us. Another important part of our public education work involves radio public service announcements on the Peak 93.3 FM. We've recently arranged a 12-month program of PSAs with Island Radio on the Peak, and we expect to go to air March 1st. There are 2 key elements to this. First, We want to have a regular presence on people's car radios and in local retail stores that play peak. We believe this could make air quality a more prominent part of the public conversation in the Alberta Valley. Second, we want to elevate the visibility of our AQC webpage on the ACRD website. We're very fortunate that our webpage is easily accessible via Google. You just need to search for Air Quality Council and our page is the top result. With this going for us, we hope to direct many listeners to lots of air quality facts on our page. This approach should enable us to reach more people and get the word out about many important air quality issues, such as backyard burning. Beyond public education, we also advocate for improved air quality in the Valley. Just yesterday, we had a virtual meeting with air quality representatives from the BC Ministry of Environment and Climate Change Strategy to discuss the smokestack emission limits at Catalyst Paper. Catalyst has greatly reduced its emissions, but their permit from the province allows emissions more than 10 times current normal levels. We believe this gap is excessive. Our fear is that if business conditions and Catalyst's intentions were to change, emissions could be increased enormously under the current permit. The potential degradation of air quality in the valley could have extremely serious consequences for public health. We are advocating strongly for the ministry to update the permit to ensure this does not happen. Climate change is another critical issue that must be addressed. We recently participated in a meeting convened by Alberni Climate Action, in which leaders of our groups discussed ways to mitigate and adapt to climate change with MLA and Minister of Energy, Mines and Low Carbon Innovation, Josie Osborne. We will continue to work with other local groups to advocate for aggressive steps toward addressing the challenges of air pollution and climate change. In addition to advocacy and public education, we also work every day on the nuts and bolts of making air quality improvement happen. For example, in recent weeks, we've provided assistance to ACRD in the preparations for another year of the Community Wood Smoke Reduction Program. This work is done with little fanfare, but is essential to keep programs like this running. We also take opportunities like this one today to make sure community leaders like you know what we're doing in planning. We held 3 Air Quality Council meetings last fall, and we've been working with AQC members to enhance our ability to communicate with them in the most meaningful and cost-effective ways. One of those ways is the document we have provided to you today. I believe you have access. I don't think there are any printed copies here, but I believe you have access in your package for the meeting today. It's the our draft airshed management plan. We encourage you to read it cover to cover, but in case you don't have time for that, here's a brief overview. The airshed management plan, or AMP, was developed during the tenure of one of my predecessors, Anna Lewis. It is meant to be a living document that will be revised as needed over time, so as to remain well-grounded in changing realities. It identifies 6 key areas of focus for our work: promoting knowledge about air quality and health, reducing emissions from heating appliances such as wood stoves, reducing open burning, reducing emissions from point sources such as Catalyst Paper, reducing vehicle emissions and promoting alternative modes of transportation, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions and working to mitigate the effects of climate change. The AMP will be foundational to the Air Quality Council's work and planning in the coming years. We will continue to work with you and with other leaders in the Alberni Valley to bring about change designed to improve public health and quality of life for our communities and for future generations. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I'm happy to field any questions.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate you coming in. And I actually did read the airshed management plan and I learned a lot. It was some really great information. So thank you for sharing. Is there any questions, Director Minions?
Thank you. Just wanted to largely thank you for the work that your council is doing. And I wanted to speak to the catalyst paper permit. And this has been an issue for quite some time. I know the Air Quality Council brought it forward 7 or 8 years ago as a concern. And I'm surprised to hear that there hasn't been a change from the ministry since. I think Catalyst has done a fantastic job of voluntarily reducing those emissions, even though they have significant space, and it doesn't have to be a priority for them because they are able to emit significantly more. But I agree with you wholeheartedly that it is a huge concern for our community, or should be a huge concern for our community, especially as corporate ownership changes and other risk factors. I recently met with the mayor of North Cowichan, where they expressed that similarly, Catalyst in North Cowichan has an excessive permit for water use, and they've drastically reduced the amount of water that they use, but they have the ability to pull as much water as they need, and the ministry has not reduced that permit either. So I think we're fortunate to have Catalyst as a good corporate citizen being diligent in both communities where there are concerns. Water use was a concern as a result of just the quantity shortages that they have in the Cowichan Valley. Catalyst has been a good corporate partner in making those changes voluntarily, but I think we can't rely on that. And I'm wondering how, as a local government, we can support in getting the Ministry of Environment to reduce these permit levels, which are historic and really not acceptable in the current day. So wondering if you have any feedback on how we could potentially support you in that initiative.
A pretty good bit of feedback from the folks we spoke to yesterday over at the ministry. Basically, their response was pretty positive. They are under a good deal of pressure they're pulled in a lot of directions, and there are higher priorities. For example, there are other mills, comparable perhaps to Catalyst, that are exceeding the limits of their permits. Obviously, that's a higher priority. So we have to work within the constraints of what the ministry is able to do. But absolutely, whatever support we can get from the folks here and the local communities is going to be, very helpful in making sure that the message gets across to the ministry that people care about this.
Thank you, Director Roth.
Hi, thank you. I'd like to know what efforts have been made to change the way forest companies manage non-merchantable timber. The current strategy of burning large piles of timber each year on the mountains that surround us are obviously a problem and harmful to human health. So what's gone on to date, or what kind of efforts have been made to change that?
That's absolutely correct. It's a huge issue. We concern ourselves with primarily backyard burning, but backyard burning is a pretty small proportion of the burning problem. As you say, the forestry organizations are doing a lot more of it. We have little ability to actually, try to impose our will on the forestry industry. Unfortunately, I think we do need input from the province on what their approach is to keeping the forestry industry responsible as possible when it comes to burning of wood materials in the process of their work. Difficult for us as a small community organization to have much influence on that, I think, but we certainly want to try to influence the ministry as much as possible in working towards more limits on that kind of burning.
Thank you, Director Sega, and then Director Mastrangelo.
Thank you. That was
Question?
really important. Okay, sorry. Um, what I'm hearing is that the ministry level approvals are being guided by the worst offenders of air quality, as opposed to using good corporate citizens as a model for that should be followed by others. So that speaks to the local voice not being heard. And I don't know if perhaps a letter would be in order from the ACRD on behalf of the air quality to the Ministry of Forests and mining, whoever's involved in air quality management. Thanks.
Yeah, we would certainly welcome any such input to the ministry. The local communities is clearly, it's an issue that our taxpayers are dealing with. It's a serious health problem, and it's contributed to substantially by the forestry organizations. So I think that's a good suggestion.
Thank you, Director Mastrangelo.
Hi, you mentioned that the amount that's released is below the permit limits. I'm just wondering, is there a correlation to the amount that's released and how much product is processed? Is that part of how they measure the amount of release of chemicals into the air?
Yeah, the smokestack releases are monitored. And as I say, Catalyst does a pretty good job of that and controlling the levels released. As I mentioned, what the permit permits is well over 10 times what is released on a regular basis. So we have proposed that limit be reduced by 70%. We actually some time ago proposed that it be reduced by 50%, but time has gone by and the speed of the process has been so disappointing that we decided that it was appropriate for us to take remedial action and try to reduce it to 70% below current levels. That still leaves a very substantial amount of headroom relative to current emissions.
Okay.
So I think we have something on the table that I believe actually we heard yesterday that Catalyst has, I think, agreed in principle to the 50% reduction. We haven't heard anything on the 70% reduction, but it certainly sounds hopeful that we could get a 50% reduction. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that does. My question was kind of leading into a bit of a theory that if the two are related, it would just make sense because I'm not too sure how long ago the last permit was issued and the amount was approved for. But if it does have anything with the amount of product that's being processed, knowing that the forestry industry has decreased in a lot of activity over the years and will probably continue to do so before it stabilizes at a low point. So I think that that just kind of makes sense, and it supports what the current times are for processing wood at mills. Thank you.
Director Steer, then Director Sparrow.
Yeah, I was just gonna, maybe Director Sparrow, if you wanted to go further, I was just gonna suggest a possible motion in terms of letter of support, in terms of the Port Alberni Air Quality Council's recommendations on that. And we could wordsmith it to appropriately, I'm sure staff could, and then to the appropriate agency, the appropriate ministry. That would, I don't know, Mike, if you had a comment, that may change that or. Okay, so if I could, I'd make that motion. If that was enough clarity there, Heather. Great.
And moved by Director Steer, seconded by Director Sega. Any final questions or comments? Either on the motion or to Ken. Okay. Okay, all in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Any final questions for Ken, Director Sparrow, and then Director McClellan?
Thank you for that. You're saying the 2.5 number for the amount of particulates in the air is one of the worst we have. And even when the catalysts pulled down all their permit levels and that now, how bad is it compared to what the average should be across Canada? Are we like 50% worse or 25% worse? What do we have to do to achieve to get the average number? How's that sound?
I think we are, a red/orange zone in terms of PM 2.5. So, I think we've got a fair way to go to get to the average. It's not going to be a trivial job getting to average. Exactly how much would have to be done is difficult to say. I mean, there are many fronts to this. There's wood stoves, there's burning of various kinds, there's vehicle emissions, and it goes on. So there's no simple solution, and it's pretty hard to move very fast. So it's something we need to be working on a number of fronts simultaneously and try to make incremental progress over time. Maybe we can get to pure orange. Maybe we can get to something better than that over time. But it's going to take time, and it's going to take effort. So progress is the main thing I think we have to focus on.
Director McClellan.
Yes, thank you for coming. Sometimes I think of the air quality board or committee just kind of stop all my fun of having bonfires and things like that. And I guess that's part of your job. But I do have a question. Not too long ago, we had a meeting here where we vote for a certain amount of money for nonprofits, and yours got some. What do you use the money for, and what is it? How's it spent?
Part of it is paying me. I'm a consultant to the Air Quality Society, which is the sort of money handling legal entity that oversees everything. So I basically report to the Air Quality Society. Another component is the work on things like the wood stove exchange program. We have also made an investment in some PSAs with the radio station. We spent some money last fall in doing the work at the Alberni Fall Fair. There are a number of promotional and informational bits that cost some additional money. But overall, we're spread fairly thin on all of the things that we're trying to do. I could go down a pretty lengthy list of things that are on my to-do list. But it's, I think, very important work that we do, and for the pretty limited investment, I think it's a pretty good investment given, as I say, the cost of, well, the cost of doing nothing would be a pretty serious cost.
Yeah, then are you consulting just the Alberni Valley air quality or more of them?
We are the Port Alberni Air Quality Council, and so we are limited basically to the valley. The Alberni Basin is kind of a special zone in that we have a lot of stagnant air. The mountains tend to cause the air to be stationary at certain times during the year with temperature inversions and so on. And that can cause a buildup of pollutants at ground level that can be a real serious health problem. That's the essential issue with our being a red zone or orange zone. So it's really the basin that we focus on.
Dr. Roth?
Hi. I noticed in the report that the latest data was 2018. Is there more data collected since then?
Unfortunately, I believe that's about the most recent data that we have on a lot of these data points. There's work being done on a fairly regular basis, but it's not every year. We have to wait for some updates that hopefully will be coming in the next couple of years.
Thank you. Any final questions for Ken? Director Sega?
Sorry, it just seems like you have this knowledge, and I'm wondering if you would like to possibly even word craft a letter that speaks to the ministries on putting forward best practice models and using them as the basis for their levels. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll certainly consider that as one of our many projects. We have a lot of outreach to the Ministry of Environment, and so that's certainly something we can consider as one of our ways of approaching them and seeing if we can promote more change.
Thank you. Seeing no more questions, I just want to thank you again for coming in today. It was very interesting. Thank you so very much. Okay, next on the agenda is Darren Harding, Associate Principal from HCMA, regarding an update on the aquatics feasibility study and summary of technical memo number 3, and this will provide information needed for a decision further down in the agenda. Hi, Darren. Welcome. How are you?
Hi, doing good. Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having myself, as well as John is also here with me. And we're going to just briefly walk through some of the results of the second phase survey that was completed, and then be here for any questions. So I'll pass it over to John, and he'll walk you through some highlights of that survey.
Hey, everyone. Can everyone see my screen just to start?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, and thank you for having us here today. My name is John, and I'm here with Darren from HCMA. We're architects, and HCMA and GDH Solutions are the consultants leading the ACRD Aquatic Center feasibility study, reviewing the potential future development of an indoor aquatic facility within the Alberni Valley. So we're going to provide a quick overview of the most recent phase of the study, the prioritizing options phase. So these are the 4 phases of the project. We've completed the first 2 phases shown here, and we're just completing the prioritizing options phase, in which a second round of public engagement with a focus on facility component options and associated cost was conducted. And this presentation will provide an overview of the results from this phase, and specifically the survey. So the focus of the prioritizing options phase was to take what we heard from the first round of public engagement and create a list of aquatic center options to provide back to the public, along with estimated costs and taxation implications. Based on this feedback from the public during the first phase, the second phase rather, a final list of aquatic center components will be created and included within a final report to help guide the next steps of the regional district's aquatic service. During the prioritizing options phase, there were several methods used to engage the public, with the primary method being an interactive online survey that was open from October 31st to December 8th, 2023. And we had a total of 1,074 responses. So survey 2, the survey was run using an online group decision-making platform called Othello that allows participants to evaluate options on a scale and weigh priorities and trade-offs while seeing costs and tax calculations in real time. Survey participants were asked to indicate whether they support or oppose each facility feature. And as they advanced through the survey, the Othello platform calculated the cost of their ideal design in real time, so participants could understand the financial impact of their decisions. At the end, the Othello platform analyzed the results of the participants' selections to find the most broadly supported combination of aquatic features, taking into account the amount of taxes people indicated they were willing to pay. So as I mentioned, there were 1,074 survey respondents. These are the percentages of respondents who came from various communities within the Alberni Valley. The majority of respondents to the survey were from the city of Port Alberni, with Beaver Creek, Sprout Lake, and Cherry Creek represented by just under 10% each. So let's look at some of the survey results. The first section of the survey presented 3 leisure pool options: a 180 square meter leisure pool, a 260 square meter leisure pool, and a 260 square meter wave leisure pool. The 180 is approximately the same size as the existing leisure pool at Echo, while the 260 and 260 wave are approximately 30% larger than the existing pool. And the 260 wave would also include wave features. So if we look at the results, the 260 wave pool received the largest percentage of the vote at 44%, followed by the 260 in second place and the 180 in third place. And if we combine the percentages of the 260 and 260 wave in first and second place, we see that about 83% of respondents voted for an increase in leisure pool size from the existing pool. And if we look at the results for leisure pools broken out by community, we see a lot of consistency. Each community except for Sprout Lake ranked the 260 wave as their top choice. And we can see in Sprout Lake, there was only about a 2% gap between the 260 wave and the 260 in first place. So pretty close there as well. Every community ranked the 180 as the least popular option. The second section presented 3 lap pool options: a 25-meter 6-lane lap pool, a 25-meter 8-lane lap pool, and a 50-meter 8-lane lap pool. The 25-6 is approximately the same size as the existing lap pool at Echo. The 25-8 is the same length plus 2 additional lanes, and the 58 is twice the length as Echo plus 2 additional lanes. So looking at the results, the 25-6 showed the greatest level of support at 40%, followed by the 25-8 in second, and the 58 in third place. Although it's worth noting as well that the other lap pool options each also received a significant portion of the overall vote. So if we look at the results of this question for lap pool broken up by community again, we see a lot of consistency. Every community ranked the 25-6 as the most popular lap pool, and every community also ranked the 58 as the least popular lap pool, with the exception of Beaufort, that had the 58 in second place and the 25-8 in third place. The next section of the survey sought feedback on 7 additional feature options, which you can see here. Participants were asked to express how interested or opposed they were to each option while seeing cost feedback. So the overall results for the additional features show the most popular features in order were hot tub, slide, fitness space, multi-purpose room, sauna, steam room, and cold plunge pool at the bottom. If we look at these additional features by community, first for Port Alberni, we see the order of the additional feature preference is the same as the overall preference. We then look at Beaver Creek. The position of the sauna and the multi-purpose room are flipped compared to the overall result, placing slightly higher importance on the sauna. For Cherry Creek, we see the items in the top 4 are rearranged a little. Results for Beaufort show some repositioning of the top 4 items as well compared to the overall results, although hot tub remains in the top spot. Results for Sprout Lake show a few differences compared to the combined result as well, though hot tub remains in the top spot here. So the next section of the survey asked participants a series of 5 questions seeking feedback on their comfort and support for the project and estimated tax increase. So we'll have a look at those. The first question we asked, based on the tax increase predicted for your design, how do you feel about it? And more than half of the respondents said that they totally support their predicted tax increase at about 54%, and only 6 said that they totally opposed it. And if we combine categories of support and opposition, as shown here in red, we see that 77% of respondents said that they either moderately or totally supported their predicted tax increase, and 12% of respondents indicated they're moderately or totally opposed to the predicted tax increase. Results for this same question, broken out by community, show that more than half of the respondents in each category indicated they are moderately or totally in support of their predicted tax increase based on the survey selections, on their survey selections. The highest support was from Port Alberni at 78%, and the highest level of opposition was from Beaufort at 29%. So next, we asked, what additional annual taxes would you be willing to pay to support the new aquatic center you designed? Responses show that while the highest support is for the lowest tax increase, the next 5 ranges do not follow a linear increase, simply from lowest to highest. The red text on the left side here shows how ranges can be combined to determine a percentage of respondents who are willing to pay up to a certain amount. So this example shows that 58% of respondents would be willing to pay up to $500 annually in additional taxes, and 74% would be willing to pay up to $400 annually. Looking at the results of this same question broken out by community, Port Alberni results are quite similar to the combined results, with a slightly lower percentage of people willing to pay up to $500 annually, though it's still above 50%. Results for Beaver Creek are also quite similar to the combined results and Port Alberni results, the same percentage of people willing to pay up to $500 annually as in Port Alberni. Results for Cherry Creek show an increase of support for the $200 to $300 range of additional taxes compared to the overall results. Still over 50% of Cherry Creek respondents indicating they're willing to pay up to $500 annually, and 64% up to $400 annually. So results for Beaufort show this largest support for the $200 to $300 range when compared to the overall results at 50%. 33% of Beaufort respondents indicated they're willing to pay up to $500 annually, while 45% indicated they're willing to pay up to $400 annually. Results for Sprout Lake show that 54% of respondents indicated they're willing to pay up to $500 annually, while 67% indicated they're willing to pay up to $400 annually. And this is the same percentage as Beaver Creek and quite similar to Port Alberni and the combined results. So next, we asked, if the amount you'd be willing to pay is less than your estimated cost for the pool you designed, would you be willing to support raising money for the project through, and this was a select, so the results show the highest support was for provincial and federal grants. And There's more information for all of these questions within the technical memo that has been issued. So we asked, this model is based on the idea that we could consider building a regional aquatic service that includes all communities in the Alberni Valley. Do you think that the ACRD should explore the creation of an aquatic service for all communities in the Alberni Valley? The overall results show a high majority of participants responding yes, with only 4% saying no and 19% saying perhaps, but they would like more information before giving an answer. Looking at the results of this question by community shows a high level of support from Port Alberni, Cherry Creek, Sprout Lake, Beaver Creek, and the lowest support from Beaufort. Though a large number, about 45% of respondents from Beaufort noted perhaps, but they'd like more information before giving an answer. So just also to note that we collected demographic information. We asked if you live in the, oh, sorry, I'm skipping ahead to the next. So this question, we asked if you live in the community of Beaufort, Beaver Creek, Cherry Creek, or Sprout Lake, and you do not want an Alberta-wide joint service for aquatics, which of the following cost share models do you think should be explored? At the door resident, non-resident rates for use had the clear majority of support with over 60%. So we also asked some demographic questions. The largest age group represented in the survey was 35 to 48 years old at 37% of respondents. And the majority of respondents also indicated they were homeowners at 85%. So at the end of the survey, the Othello survey platform is designed to analyze all the possible combinations of pool and additional feature options to find the most broadly supported decision scenario, taking into account the amount of taxes people are willing to pay. It seeks to find an outcome that will maximize the average support while minimizing inequalities in the distribution of that support. For this survey, the most popular scenario was what you see here. So a 260 square meter leisure wave pool, a 25 meter 6-lane lap pool with a hot tub, slide, fitness space, multi-purpose room, sauna, and steam room. The combination of this combination of aquatic center components does align with the feedback received over both phases of public engagement, and we recommend moving forward to the next stage of the study with this combination of aquatic facility components. With the results of the public survey and combination of facility components established, the team will next develop a high-level concept design and project cost estimate to be included in a final report. And the final report is intended to help guide the next steps for the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District's aquatic service. So thank you for the opportunity to present, and we're happy to take any questions.
Thank you, John. That was a lot of information. I do have one question. You probably can't give a recommendation, but this is just like from your expertise. The Aquatics Committee supported the 6-lane lap pool, but since then, our planning department in the city of Port Alberni has projected that our population is going to grow to over 5,000 residents within the next 10 years. So we're building a pool not for today, but to last for the next 50 years. So knowing that Port Alberni is going to be growing in population, in your opinion, do you think it would be better to go to the 8-lane pool?
If I may, 6-lane lap pools can adjust, can still service larger communities. Leisure pool size is a strong indicator, and so if you have a growing community, it would be good to focus on the scale of leisure pool, which I think in this case is a large one. So I wouldn't preclude that the 6-lane would not be sufficient for a larger community size. Of course, the more lanes you have, the more opportunities you have for concurrent programming to be occurring within the pool. So there's a lot of benefits that come out of gaining those 2 lanes, but it's a decision of trade-offs at that point.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Director McClellan.
Yeah, I guess the only is a comment based on what you said, Madam Chair, is that we got that projection of X number of people coming to Port Alberni, and therefore we should be building bigger. I remember the first time I heard that comment was 50 years ago. And it didn't really get much bigger in any of that time. And they will build this, build that, do this, that. And there was all kinds of projections and graphs and things that people would come to town and bring for us. But I think we got to be realistic. The forest industry, as someone has said here today, is still in a bit of a decline. And that's basically where the money generator is. The rest of the jobs there's fishing and forestry and a bit of mining, and the rest of the jobs are, I guess, paid by the taxpayer mostly. So I think we got to be cautious.
Director Cote.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Can't hear you. Is that better? Now we can hear you. We can't hear you again.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
the presentation that came forward is exactly what the committee has been dealing with, seeing the results of. I think that it serves the community well, the way that it's being presented. My questions are all about governance and taxation and how the service will be delivered and how things will be paid for. I know that as the highest assessment-based community that's participating, then I would like to see the cost of the facility and the services split so that I can see what those are, so that the community can see what those are, and move forward from there. So I'm not prepared to support anything without that component part of this moving forward. So thank you, but thank you for the presentation.
Director Roth.
Thank you. I'd just like to point out, like for my area, there were 99 respondents to the survey. We have a population of about 2,950. So that means only 3% of the population of Beaver Creek responded to the survey. And in one of the slides there, it indicated that only 2% of our population would have supported a tax increase. You know, I want everything to go forward to the people. And the most important thing to me is that there's a proper referendum ballot, not using the alternate approval process. And also that each individual area gets to vote on it individually. That's very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Director Mastangelo?
Yeah, a little bit of a comment and recognizing that, yeah, there are a lot of incoming visitors into town, and each of a couple of the electoral areas that are mentioned are also have rural communities there that visit on a regular basis and come into town and have certain appointments that they go to and bring their children, and would definitely be families and groups that would enjoy this service. So I just thought that was worth mentioning and capturing as well, although they can't be captured directly through this survey.
Thank you. Director Roth, did you have another question?
Yes, I just like to know, I constantly see comments online about the current pool not having enough lifeguards and being closed. Like, is that going to change?
Okay, I think that would be a question for the city, not for the consultants. because they don't have that expertise.
True enough, but it is for the public to understand that.
It's the Yale.
I can touch on that. I know that it is a common issue for all recreation departments across the province that experienced shutdowns during COVID, is that a lot of their core training programs experienced up to a 2-year gap. And a lot of the staff that were laid off found other areas of employment because they needed employment. And it's just last week, it continues to be an issue across the province. I was at the provincial CAO conference in Vancouver, and recreation and pools in particular continue to be a challenge across the province. So, will it change? Yes, but it's going to take time as the city here does what it needs to do to rebuild that program base, to get people trained up, and to get people reemployed in that area. But I would just flag that unfortunately is a provincial theme, and that's the best I can offer, and the city will provide its responses as well.
Dr. Minions.
Thank you. I just wanted to say I think that's a really important note and topic of discussion as we move forward. And I think that we all are hearing that from members of the public as the timing of them going through this survey, while we consistently have pool closure notices posted, I think just naturally that's the right question to be asking. I think it would be worth us inviting the City of Port Alberni's Director of Parks, Recreation and Heritage to come and present further possibly on this topic as we continue. But I just wanted to note that there are a number of efforts being made, including the city paying for training of lifeguards. The uptake on that has been increasing recently. So we are looking at seeing, more people coming in and looking to take on the roles. So we're optimistic about that. And another thing that's being explored is changing the required designation. Currently, we require our lifeguards to be lifeguards and swim instructors, which is a more difficult designation to get. So I think Director Roth, that's an excellent question and an important consideration as we continue to move forward. And I just wanted to note a couple of things that the city is doing. We are optimistic it's going to change in the near future. And I think also with a new pool brings probably new excitement for additional staff to come and get trained. Thanks.
Yeah, I just want to remind the Aquatics Committee members that Director of Parks and Recreation and Culture was at that last meeting, and she did respond to that question, and she felt comfortable, but at the time the new pool is built, which is going to be years down the road, she felt comfortable that they would be at full staff complement. Director Cote. Director Cote.
Oh, thank you. I didn't realize that you called my name. There seems to be, in my mind, a lot more to discuss besides the aquatic center. I know that the city pays for Parks and Rec, and we subsidize them a little bit. So I think that needs to be a part of the what this question is going to end up being. Sprout Lake has a parks budget ourselves, and as Director Roth had pointed out, it's a very small portion of the people that had actually answered the survey. So, in my opinion, the keeners, the ones that want it, will actually be following along more than saying that they want to support this. And we need to hear those people, definitely, and how this is all going to work together. I think that it's, as the city has put in quite plainly, that it sort of needs to be all of us or none of us moving forward. So it's a big question. Thanks.
Is there any more questions for Darren and John? Seeing none, I just want to thank you very much, and we'll be in touch for next steps.
Thank you.
Next is correspondence for action. District of Tofino, February 21st, 2024, requesting Alberni Clayoquot Regional District support regarding a resolution submitted to ABICC with respect to emergency medical response calls. And I just want to say that last year the city did submit a very similar resolution that was passed. And we met with BC Ambulance at UBCM, and they said we had done some adjusting with our scheduling. The numbers should be going down. However, the number of calls went up. And so we sent another resolution again this year. So I think we're all on the same page. You want to comment, Director Steer?
Yeah, and I think this was in consultation with the CAO and the District of Tofino staff, and this was decided that Tofino would bring this one forward. It is a consideration, just basically from the Tofino perspective, our numbers had escalated quite substantially, and we're just looking for a conversation around equity in this particular situation. We have concerns around volunteer burnout. We have concerns around the numbers that are associated and the direct costs that are associated with that. So it's something that I think many communities throughout the province are having conversations about. And I do remember from last year, as well as even at the regional district level here, we've had this conversation on many occasions. So I think it's pretty straightforward. The resolution will be presented at ABICC and hopefully goes up to UBCM if supported. So if there is no other comments, I can make the motion that the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors support the resolution submitted to ABICC by the District of Tofino with respect to BC Fire Rescue Service Departments experiencing increased demands in emergency medical response calls.
Moved by Director Stair, second by Director Minions. Any questions or comments? Did you have a comment, Rick? You've got your finger on the button.
Well, if you'd like me to make it, I just had a question and I wasn't going to make it because we're running shy on time here, but what are you exactly looking for? Are you looking for a full-time fire department when by the time you get a lot of money to cover the medical? Because it seems to me that over 90% of the calls to the fire departments are for medical, so-called medical. I have a problem calling some things medical, but that's another debate.
Yeah, I think it's an open conversation around basically in the smaller communities where we don't have paid, we have volunteer fire departments, as is much of the case in the ACRD as well as in some of the municipalities. So the burden that is placed on them from a financial perspective is one, but the other part is we're very concerned about the amount of response calls. This is not their primary task. EHS, BC Emergency, that is their primary task. And we just want the province to recognize that unless they're going to increase services through the BC EHS services, I don't think there's one person at our fire department that does not want to do this. We just recognize that there's an inequity in terms of the way that we're funded through these. Once again, municipalities and local governments always will step up to the plate. We just want a little more equity in terms of how we're financed, as well as a recognition in terms of the volunteer for many that commit a tremendous amount of time to this.
Thank you. Any final questions or comments?
Yeah.
Oh, Director Roth.
Hi. I would like to know if there are other communities in BC that do not respond to medical callouts, like other fire departments or volunteer fire departments. And if this is a choice that we make, and that will be the response from the province is, you don't have to do this, you've decided to do this yourselves.
Yo, do you want to respond to that?
So this is, you're correctly hitting a nerve across the province. That is an ongoing debate. The medical call sequencing or categories has been changed. It used to a color designation now. And so there's a lot of debate around only responding to the top two. I think it's red and burgundy. And so that's really life or death is what people are saying. This is what they're considering only responding to. So the answer is yes. There are some people who are limiting what they respond to. It would be hard for me to say with a lot of accuracy how many are not responding at all. I would be surprised if when it comes to the top categories that none are responding. But there's a lot of debate around really minimizing the volume of responses to ensuring that we're only deploying our volunteers or paid firefighters if and when it's a matter of life and death, and not when it's just a stopgap for what the ambulance really should be going to. The other big category of concern that is being debated across the province is the medical transportations. When you're moving a patient from one hospital to another or to a different facility, ambulance does that right now. In some cases, people are now arguing that if you're going to use our fire departments, use them for that and then pay them adequately for the time. Because what you see is like if you're transporting from Tofino to Port Alberni, for example, what ends up happening is one ambulance travels down towards Tofino to offset the loss of the ambulance coming here. And so both communities lose an ambulance for upwards of 5 hours on a round trip. And so, and then that, of course, has an impact, which our fire departments pick up. So it's all an intricate web of supporting service. But at the end of the day, our service is volunteer. And that's where we really get into a problem. So this resolution is well timed. And I think many people across ABICC and eventually the UBCM are going to be supporting it. But there's a lot of people that are really thinking about solutions on how best to use those resources that we have so that we can still provide a cost-effective service.
Thank you. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is correspondence for information versus a letter from BC salmon farmers regarding consultation on the 2024 marine fin fish license reusage and conditions. Letter from the Ministry of Forests regarding the 2023 Heritage Conservation Act Transformation Project engagement sessions. And a letter from Pacific Rim School District regarding public consultation on the proposed sale of Lot 11, Plan VIP 87124, District Lot 13, Alberni Land District, Craig Road. Does anyone put on anything for discussion? Seeing none, could I get a motion that the Board of Directors receive items A through C for information? Moved by Director Steer, second by Director Sega. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is request for decisions and bylaws. First, request for decision, North Island 911 Corporation Shareholders Agreement. And our CEO is going to speak on this.
Typically, the 911 agreement is something that a CAO would sign or could sign. However, this year we wanted to bring it forward because there is a slight difference, and I felt more comfortable ensuring that the board was aware of the change. So for the past 3 years, we've been running a pilot model of collecting the funds, our proportionate share of funds for running North Island 911 would be collected through an assessment, apportionment of 50% assessment, land assessment, and 50% population. That has seemed to have worked well in helping balance some of the more rural areas with the urban areas, and some areas like Sprout Lake, which have a higher assessment but a lower population. It helps sort of take away the pinch of the high assessment. So given that success, North Island 911 now wants to make that model permanent in the agreement that comes forward. And so we are shareholders in this, and that's the structure of it. But I didn't want to sign this agreement without the board knowing that we're shifting from a pilot model to a permanent model, and wanted to see if there's any discomfort of that or if we're okay proceeding with the agreement.
Director Beckett, then Director Steer.
Thank you. As you're aware, I sit as the board's representative on the North Island 911 working group. And we all, after review, unanimously supported this agreement. I just wanted to pass that on to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Steer, then Director Cote.
Yeah, I think Director Beckett spoke clearly on that. And I just wanted to point, I just had a quick question for CAO. Of the other 5 participating regional districts, has there been, is there supportive of this this move as well? I just made that assumption. Yeah.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. So in this report, it talks about the taxation and how it's agreement, shareholders agreement from 100% assessment base value to 50 population and 50% assessed values. So will that be the way that we're taxed, or will the same as the Library Act bill and change it over to assessment base only? Thank you.
The value that we would see taxation taking place on would be in consideration of the 50% based on assessed and 50% population. But when it comes to taxation, we have no mechanism for taxing population itself. So that's where you see the difference. So we establish the value, and then we tax based on, I see Terry coming on in case I'm getting something wrong, but ultimately that's how it would be structured. Terry, do you want to correct? Or...
Yeah, so the apportionment between the regional districts that are members of the North Island 911 Corporation will be on the basis of 50% population, 50% land and improvement. The establishing bylaw at the regional district for our service is solely on the basis of land and improvements. So yes, Director Cote, it'll be similar to the library in that our regional district share will be based on, have a population factor. However, how it's passed on to our members will not. We could amend the establishing bylaw. It does require ministry approval, as well as I off the top of my head, I think it's 2/3 of the directors would have to support the amendment of that establishing bylaw in order to proceed with changing the apportionment method.
So how would we start that process? Because Sprout Lake continually gets socked with these high assessment-based taxation when the bill comes to us in a different form. So I have a problem with that when that happens at the board. Thank you.
If someone would like to make a motion to investigate changing the apportionment method of the service establishing bylaw following the budget season, then we would be happy to take a look at what was all involved and bring back a report for the board's consideration.
Uh-oh.
The vast majority of our claims are
my connection's not very good.
For the insurance and liability program.
So I would like to make that motion after the budget, I guess. I know that it won't happen for this year, but I'd really like to have that investigated. That's gonna probably, that could be an area where it could hit other areas similar to the aquatics center, where it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It's the same service and it should be charged the same for everyone, not by assessment based. I see that with a few different services that we receive, that we get overtaxed, in my opinion. Thank you.
Terry?
And just a reminder that in the end, even if we change the apportionment method of an establishing bylaw, we have no taxing mechanism to tax people. So even if we divide, I'll say divide the pie up between the members of that service on population and land and improvement, in the end, your area and the households in the area will be charged based on land and improvement. So just a reminder of that fact.
Okay, Director Cote has a motion on the floor. Do anybody want to second it? Oh, did you say after budget season, Director Cote? Or did you want to do it now for after? I thought you meant.
I'd like to make a motion now for after budget season.
Okay. So
Is there a seconder? I don't see a seconder, so the motion will. Are you seconding that motion, Director Mastrangelo, or did you have a question?
Yeah, sorry, I was gonna get you to repeat the last part that you said before asking for second.
Myself or staff have it?
Those issues pick up
Yeah.
steam in the
Just
real.
yourself, Penny.
It's regarding taxation.
And so
When a service comes with a bill to the regional district that is 50% per capita and 50% assessment, I'd like it to be transferred to taxation to the areas in that manner, rather than just by assessment base, because assessment base is higher than what population base would be. So per capita, when a service, when something like this is charged out to an area, every household pays differently because of their assessment, rather than if it's the same service. If I'm buying an apple and you're buying an apple, why should I pay 3 times more? Thank you.
We'll bring in an endorsement that says.
Okay, final call. Is there a seconder for the motion? Say no seconder, are you seconding the motion? Director Mastangelo, are you seconding the motion? If you have another question?
Yep. No, sorry, I'll second that.
Okay, so moved by Director Cote, second by Director Mastangelo. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Opposed? Motion defeated. Okay, so would anybody like to make the motion on the agenda to accept the North Island 911 Board of Directors Corporation Shareholders Agreement? Yes, Director McClung.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just waiting to see on 3.3 of this agreement. It says what a quorum necessary is. And my reading of the agreement and so on is that this is an open-ended agreement that gets looked at every 10 years. Is that correct?
CEO?
That's what I saw written, but I don't know if that's what it meant.
It is well, it's a standing agreement. That's what you mean by open ending. And I have to double check the term. I thought we were going for 3-year periods, but check that.
Well, well, I guess we're passing this now, aren't we? It's already in. We just get to say, hi, we got it.
It is, we are part of the corporation. So this is how the corporation then governs itself and how we connect into it. So we're a shareholder in the corporation. And so even saying no to this agreement doesn't remove us from that corporation. It's just saying that we continue to operate along these guidelines, and the quorum is the 75% of those participating. So on it's just to say to have our meeting, we need to have 3/4 of the shareholders on the board present in order to continue with that meeting.
And what it says here is 75% of the shareholders votes, and each shareholder has more than one vote. And based on population, it looked to me. So if Comox and Nanaimo together made up 75% of this area, then they could get together their one rep each. 20 years from now, maybe only, but one rep each, and pass something that you wouldn't even necessarily be invited to.
Well, you would, I don't think you could mathematically get to 75% with just 2 members. And I think that is where, like, they're, yeah, like the percentage share that we have, the number of shares that we have is, sorry, I gotta go into that detail here. Gotta find the right table. Well, that is that's the contribution. It's different than the shares. So the shares in the company is different. So on page 60, so the second page of the agreement, you have your number of shares. So here you have your Comox Valley and Nanaimo, Alberni, Clayoquot. So if you take those top three in there, we are still just shy of 75%. So you would still need one of the other members to be in favor if the three of us were in agreement. So I don't think there's a scenario where you could achieve that 75% with just two members. I don't think there's one where you can achieve it with just three. So there'd have to be 4 out of the 6 that are in agreement for something to go through.
Well, if you're around in 20 years, find out.
I hope I'm around in 20 years to find out. And so I'd like to think that I will be around, but fair enough. I mean, this agreement, this service has been around for almost 30 years as well. And to date, we haven't run into any shifts that would cause a monopoly in this service.
Dr. Sparrow?
Well, thank you for that. Article 5.7 is a 10-year agreement, just for clarity.
Thank you. I was typing it in to try and find it, but it brought me everywhere else in the entire board agenda.
Would anyone like to make the motion that's on the agenda? Director Beckett. Moved by Director Beckett, second by Director Sparrow. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next on the agenda is grant funding application with Natural Resources Canada Fighting and Managing Wildfires and Changing Climate Program 2023. And we would like to ask Protective Service Manager Karen Freedy to come and speak on this topic.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Randy and I are here to ask for support in a grant application for the Fighting and Managing Wildfires in a Climate Change Program. This grant came to our attention about a week prior to the application deadline, so we didn't have an opportunity to bring it to the board prior to its submission, and we wanted to bring it forward now to ask for your consideration. This is a federal grant through Natural Resources Canada, and we're pursuing this grant because it provides us with an opportunity to develop fuel treatment plans. A fuel treatment plan is a document that identifies strategies to reduce the risk of wildfires impacting built values. And the purpose of the plan is to provide objectives that will result in a measurable reduction of risk. If we're successful in our application, our intention is to hire a professional consultant to develop plans in the areas that were outlined as a priority in the Community Wildfire Protection Plan. There are 17 areas of interest that were identified as high or moderate fire risk, of which 9 were considered high in the CPP. And so we would focus on those ones first. The CPP provides a strategic recommendations, 48 in total, to improve wildfire resilience. And in the plan, there are recommendations that focus on the protection of critical infrastructure, fuel management, and public awareness. The importance of this particular project outlined in this grant has been identified as a high priority in the CPP recommendations as a means to reduce threats from wildfires. And the objective of this project is to have a professional consultant complete assessments and develop prescription plans so that we can best determine our next steps in wildfire mitigation activities. Fuel management is a key element of wildfire risk reduction, and by undertaking treatment plans, we'll better understand what activities need to be actioned. And if we're successful, we may have an opportunity whereby we can action some of these plans using funds in future Fire Smart grants. If we're unsuccessful, or if the board chooses to withdraw our application, we may have another opportunity to develop treatment plans through the Fire Smart grant coming up as well. So Randy and I are more than happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Director Cote has a question.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, so at Sprout Lake, I'm wondering if this can be utilized, this grant, for understanding more about the Kurt's Crib at the end of Sprout Lake as an emergency access, or another emergency access would be lot 950 at the end of Taylor Arm. just looking at if this grant could actually be supportive of those type of activity. Thank you.
And so they're going to say, well,
I noticed Randy had his hand up, so I will turn it over to you, Randy.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Cote. So the fuel management prescriptions through this grant or through the Fire Smart program deal specifically with areas that are in what we call the wildland urban interface. So they have to be within so many meters of built values. And so while our CWPP does identify as a goal or a recommendation that we should consider work around our exit corridors, it isn't anything that qualifies for funding for the work, if that makes sense.
Director Steer, and then Director Sparrow.
I was going to make the motion there. I'll just do it right now. That the Alberni-Clackett Regional District Board of Directors support the grant funding application to the Fighting and Managing Wildfires in a Changing Climate Program for $170,000 to complete the project, the development of fuel treatment plans for the ACRD. This is a side note. This is exactly what my son is doing as we speak. So in North Central BC. So these types of plans are critically important for that urban interface in the treatment plans that they have moving forward. So I'll make that motion.
Yeah. Second, moved by Director Steer, second by Director Minions. Director Sparrow, did you have a question or comment?
Thank you for that. You're saying about, the wildfire aspect in the urban interface. So I was wondering, we have a place by the cemetery that's been clear cut recently. It is close to trees and it is private lands. Would you do a fuel treatment plan for that and get Mosaic to try and figure out what they're going to do? Because if it starts in there, it can hop across to the town, right, Cherry Creek right across the road. It's within 100 feet of the candy store. So would this grant help push Mosaic to do things to make it more palatable on our exit routes, as you had mentioned?
Randy, do you want to respond?
Through the chair to Director Sparrow. So we're using the information from our community wildfire protection plan. As Karen outlined, there are a number of areas that were identified as high risk. There are some areas along the perimeters of our urban area, as well as throughout the regional district or throughout the Alberni Valley and Banfield. We would prioritize the areas that are identified as the highest risk. And to answer your specific question about the area around the cemetery, there's another avenue to address that. We're not regulatory in this sense. We don't have the ability to just show up on somebody's land and tell them how to manage it. So through our community Fire Smart Resiliency group and our emergency network, we're building relationships with all stakeholders in the valley, including Mosaic and other industrial users, First Nations, to have a collaborative approach to these solutions. And so part of that, part of the process that the registered professional would go through to develop the fuel treatment prescription for a specific area would include, speaking with the various stakeholders, particularly the ones that border the specific areas that we're targeting.
Dr. Sparrow?
One more follow-up question. Because we had the air quality control here at the beginning of the day, hopefully one of the treatment methods will not be burning on the side of the highway. And it'll be removal to help move along. Thank you.
Great comment. Any further questions? Dr. McClellan?
Yeah, I'm just noticing here that the $170,000 in grant funding goes towards, we'll be funding 100% of the contractor fees and honorariums and hiring a consultant. When this 170,000 is gone, what happens?
The $170,000 is hopefully the right amount to develop the prescription plans. Once we have the prescription plans, it's just telling us what actions we need to do to get the expertise and the knowledge. Once we have the prescription plans, we have a choice then to whether we action them or not. The Fire Smart grant provides an opportunity for funding, and there may be other opportunities for funding where we can take what we now have learned and what we know and learn the strategies to apply and then put them forward into action. So we would have to, if we want to apply what we learned through the prescription plans, we would need to apply for further grant funding from different federal funding or also from the Fire Smart grant.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, not seeing any further questions. I'd like to call for the motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is phase 3 of the Alberni Valley Aquatic Center feasibility study, and there's quite a few motions here, and I'll let the CEO speak.
Thank you, Chair. So this is a complex one. It's and the resolutions that are there are aimed to help us walk through the transition from phase 2 to phase 3 and hopefully get into a phase 4. So I'll ask that you bear with me as I explain some of this. So technical memo 3 was we received an overview of from the consultants HCMA, and I think the information in there is good. I do know that you know, we certainly didn't get numbers that would lend to a lot of confidence if we're thinking of a referendum. So like Director Roth brought up, having 2% or 3% of the population respond isn't as high as we'd like, but it is what we have. And so we're going to do our best to make decisions based on the comments that were received. Technical memo 3 accurately identifies what kind of package the overall Alberni Valley would likely support. And that's why all these percentages, when we're looking at, you know, what is the 50% plus mark on the community's desire to see certain aspects of an aquatics facility, we wanted to make sure that we had those numbers so that we could accurately advance this and know that there's a degree of confidence in the overall formula of that aquatic center. So there is an additional step that HCMA needs to complete. So they were hired to do all of the outreach that they did alongside ACRD and city staff. They've completed that. To complete their contract, they would need to do a high-level conceptual drawing of the facility and Class D estimates. And we would then use that drawing and those estimates to help guide and feed information to the next steps. And for us, the next steps is really talking about a regional service, because that is what does not exist right now. And even though it would be tempting to jump in and say, let's just choose a location and do a detailed design, and let's run as quickly as possible to get grants, the reality is that that is an expensive step. And to go into that level of detail without knowing that there's actual service that is supported is really would be, I think, a fiscal mistake. So we wanted to make sure that we're structuring all of this so that we can take each step in stride, and it's likely slower than we'd like to be moving at, but I think they're necessary steps. So the recommendations that are there are first to receive or accept technical memo 3, so that HCMA can then finish their overall work, which is what we see in recommendation 2, which is giving direction to HCMA to do the design, high-level design, so it won't be tied to a location, just a high-level design and Class D estimates tied to the construction of a pool that would have, or an aquatic facility that would have all those elements that the surveys ranked high enough to include. Then the third aspect is really about our work going forward. The third recommendation is all about how we would then do our work in 2024 to advance a potential aquatic service. And each one of those steps are important because they are a direct result of the conversations that have occurred both with the public and with our advisory committee. And so I just want to take a minute to touch on those steps. So recommendation 3 talks about directing staff to advance with phase 3 of the aquatics initiative. This would include the drafting of a regional aquatic service report that considers the input provided via the outreach process in phases 1 and 2. B is the preparation of options for the apportionment of service capital costs, asset management, as well as operational costs. Now, this speaks directly to what I believe Director Cody has brought up in terms of finding those balances where she had expressed that, hey, I'm not sure that I like how much we're having to pay in Sprout Lake. Is there a different formula that we could explore? And so what we would do as staff is explore the different formulas and then bring it back here to this table for some discussions. Now, it could be that we do some public or that we talk with other councils in the process, but nonetheless, the message we received was that there's a desire to re-examine that apportionment formula as part of any service. Point C is a governance structure. And here again, we heard loud and clear that if you're going to pay, people want to have a say. And so the governance structure is super important. And the concern, I think, similar to what Director McClellan just brought up in 911, is no one wants to be in a position where they have a tokenistic vote. So the governance structure needs to ensure that there's no veto in any one area, and that at the very least, you need a grouping in the governance structure to make decisions on how a service moves forward. So we have to bring examples and options back for that. The examination of aquatic service delivery that's best suited to the desires of the Valley. There again is a discussion that arises out of a question that came up today. How are we going to deliver service? Do we have enough lifeguards? So we have all these various things. That would have to be part of the discussion of how it tucks into a service. And there are elements of that which would have to be in camera because in that one we're talking about staff and the staffing model. But nonetheless, in discussions, I think there's a strong desire from the advisory committee and through the comments from the public where that's an area of interest in exploring that. Point E is all about the referendum. So we heard loud and clear that no individual area wants to be part of a service if they're forced into it. So they want to know that their community has a vote on whether or not they would be part of a service. And so we would work with the ministry to make sure we structure that. But the quick and dirty on that one, just so we're aware, is that this approach would likely result in at least 2 referendums. So there would be the first referendum with the same question once we draft it would go out to each area. So the city of Port Alberni, Beaufort, Beaver Creek would all have their own vote on the same question to see whether or not they're opting to be part of the service as presented. Once that formula is established, then the group who wants to be part of a service needs to have a discussion on how they would structure it if not everyone is part of that service. So let's say, for example, Beaver Creek ends up being not part of the service. Then we know from the survey that there's that the majority support a 2-tiered payment system, and the group that would be part of the service would need to have that discussion in terms of, do we proceed or do we stop there? And then once that is done, then we would likely need a service or a referendum on the actual creation of the service that includes everyone that wants to be part of it. And so I know it's complicated, but there's likely not going to be any other ways of ensuring people have the ultimate final say on whether they're in or out. And so it would likely be a 2-step process. Finally, there would be the preparation of a draft public outreach plan for advancing the possible aquatic service. And that would, of course, be all about public engagement, making sure the public has the right information at the right time for making the decision that's being asked of them. All that would be the work for 2024. And if all that were stunningly successful and people said, we're a group, we're ready, we have a service, then we would be considering location design and getting ready for what would eventually be a referendum on borrowing to build an aquatics facility. So that's where I say this stuff takes time. I know that when we started this process last year, there was a lot of anxiety or expressed anxiety around, jumping right to borrowing and building. The reality is that we probably won't be in that position until 2026 or late 2025 if all things land well. So what we've tried to do is split it apart so that the first two resolutions can bring closure to the work that was done in phases 1 and 2 and set the stage for the work that needs to be done in phase 3. And then recommendation 3 is all about what we're including in the work for phase 3. And if we missed anything, we put it by number and letter so we can pull things out and add things in as needed. If there's any questions, I'll do my best to answer them.
I actually have a couple of questions, if I could go first. The preferred area hasn't been identified as part of city-owned property. When would the conversation be taking place with the city to hold that property for the pool?
Likely towards the end of 2024, once we have a good indication of, if and what that service actually looks like. There's a lot of variability in there, but until we know what the service is, it's hard for us to even conceive of building something. So we'd need to have that service. Then we'd enter discussions with the city. If the city was saying, no, we don't like the locations, then we'd be looking at another outreach process for choosing locations. The good news is that the work done in phase 1 and 2 isn't stale dated. The values that people have are and won't be stale dated by that point. So the values people put into saying we want transit access, we want good parking, we want trail access, is all relevant to where we choose or what location is finally chosen. The reason why I would have it at the end of this process prior to doing anything with regards to a referendum on borrowing is that depending on how negotiations would go, if we were to build it in the city, we don't know what the cost would be. Are we talking about a low-cost long-term lease? Are we talking about a flat-out purchase? And even though there may be public opinion and emotion tied around what that is, there's a lot of business sense around both options. And we would want to make sure that whoever is hosting this on whatever land, that we do it properly so that the ownership alignment is in line with what the service that people are seeking is.
Thank you. And my next question is, these priorities that the committee has identified, at this point, they're not written in stone. So what I'm asking is, if you go out and you do more consultation and public engagement, and they say, you know what, we really want an 8-lane pool. And I'm just using that example, that can be changed before we actually go to referendum.
Yes, that can be changed, and in elements that we know are close. So the size of the pool and the width of the pool is likely the tightest area that we saw in the outcomes there. So we've already had that discussion with HCMA. For them, when they design something, they're going to design it so you could build outwards and go bigger if you wanted to. And I think that would be wise even once we select the location. We're going to want to talk about not having to rebuild a pool in 50 years, but maybe consider expanding the pool. And so making sure that wherever we choose a footprint, that footprint lends itself to the growth of the valley in the decades to come.
Director Roth has her hand up.
Thank you. I'd like to make the motions, but I'd also like to ask for 2 amendments. One to item B on the 3rd section to include the estimated borrowing costs, and one on item E that ensures the referendum cannot be an alternate approval process, but otherwise everything all the same with those 2 amendments.
No, there's 3 motions.
Can I just ask for a point of clarity? The borrowing costs, yeah, we can certainly include that. Makes sense. On point E, ensuring it's not an AAP, I feel is being addressed because we're saying specifically a referendum. So it's the referendum is a different electoral assent process. And so rather than saying an assent process and leaving it vague, when you get to assent processes, there's either the AAP or the referendum, and point E is specifically saying referendum already. I'm just not clear on the request.
Well, can I further explain that?
Yes, please go ahead.
When you go on the provincial government website and you look up referendum processes, they include both the alternate approval process and a regular assent referendum under the same title. So there's a choice. So I just wanted to make sure that this referendum was not done by the alternate approval process, just in case they're considered the same under the provincial government's eyes.
CEO?
Okay, so would it be okay if I put beside referendum structure in parentheses, not an AAP?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That was the
Did you want to start making the motions then, Director Roth?
Sure. Sure. I'll move that the Alberni-Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors accept the technical memo number 3.
Moved by Director Roth, second by Director Sparrow. Director Cote, did you have a question? I've been asked to ask you if you have background noise or like radio, TV, could you turn it down? We're getting a lot of feedback when you speak.
I've got another meeting. Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I would agree with to accept the memo.
Director Roth or Director Cote, we're having trouble hearing. You're still getting a lot of background.
And we'll see moving forward with the rest of the
I'm sorry, we still can't hear you.
No? Can you hear me now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay, great. So yeah, I agree with accept the technical memo, yes. But it seems really quite vague as far as the governance or the rest of the recommendations. So I'd like more information. It's just a little too vague for me to support. So the recommendations as to what the pool would look like and what the amenities would be with it are what came out of a survey, mostly by the city of Port Alberni. And the cost of that is going to be what the cost of that is. But how is the governance going to be? And if we're going to, my other sheet here, if we're going to, where was it? The majority, if the majority is the city, how would we turn that service into a service that where we all have a say? I'm pretty sure that the regional district, I would not want to see the regional district running the aquatic center, staffing it and doing that. I really don't see that as something that we could take on at this time. So I have a lot of questions and issues around moving this all forward today.
CEO?
The question that you're having would be the subject of the work that we do in 2024. So we can't get more clarity without getting the direction from the board to go get that clarity. That's what staff is seeking right now.
I think that's quite specific though, rather than I know that we need more information, but this is, yeah, it's just coming on in a strange way to me. Thanks.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. So if there's any more questions about the first motion, If not, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Dr. Roth, would you like to read the second motion?
Sure. That the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors accept the outcome of the 2023 public survey results and direct staff complete the Aquatic Center design with Class D estimates as recommended by the Alberni Valley Aquatic Center Advisory Committee, which includes the following features: leisure pool, the 260 square meter wave pool, lap pool, the 25 meter 6-lane lap pool, additional features, hot tub, slide, fitness space, multipurpose room, sauna, and steam room.
Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Steer. Any questions or comments on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Did you want to read the third motion, Director Roth?
Sure. That the Alberni Clayoquot Regional District Board of Directors direct staff to advance with Phase 3 of the Aquatics Initiative to include A, the drafting of a regional aquatic service report that considers the input provided via the public outreach processes completed in Phase 1 and 2 of the aquatics outreach process. B, as amended, the preparation of options for the apportionment of service capital costs, assessment management costs, as well as operational cost and estimated borrowing costs. C, the preparation of a governance structure that ensures no single member area participating in the proposed aquatic service retains a majority or veto power over service governance decisions. D, the examination of aquatic service delivery options best suited for the implementation of the desired services. E, as amended, the development of provincially approved referendum structure, not alternate approval process, that provides the ability for each area, being the City of Port Alberni, Electoral Area B, D, E, and F, to individually vote on their possible participation in the proposed service. And F, the preparation of a draft public outreach plan for advancing with a possible aquatic service.
Moved by Director Ross, second by Director Steer. Any questions or comments? Director Minions.
Thank you. I know that this is really the crux of what the work that needs to happen on the service will be. I just want to express that I have a real issue with item E. I think that I understand that we have areas who would like to be able to opt out. From my perspective, that is not the point of a regional service. I think that when we build a service that is for the use of the entire area, it's not reasonable to say we're not going to pay and we'll just pay more at the door. From my perspective, I would be completely opposed to a service that excluded one or two of the Alberni Valley areas. So I'm a bit worried that we're wasting our time. And we're going to get to a point where maybe, I don't want to name any areas, but maybe one area opts out. And I would not then support the next step to go to a referendum on service that did not include the whole of the Alberni Valley, because that's not the nature of what this service should be. I have a hard time because we've been so back and forth on this, and from the start, this has been really the challenge. A year or so ago, we were at the point where we were proceeding on an all-in or all-out basis, and that has shifted. I understand the desire to be able to opt out, but how would the Alberni Valley regional areas like if the City of Port Alberni opted out and then left the cost for everyone else to pay without us contributing, and we just said, well, we'll pay at the door? It's not equitable for a service that we all have access to. I understand if the board wants to move forward this way. I just want to note that I feel if we do get to a point of multiple areas or even one area opting out, that puts the whole service at question. Certainly, I would not personally support moving forward with further steps in that way. And I know that there's been discussion about the higher user pay at the door for areas that have not opted in being kind of the next level of consideration. But again, I wouldn't support going to that model. We've had that model. It didn't work. It wasn't equitable. We moved away from it. So why are we now proceeding forward into the future with a service that, you know, should be for our communities for the next 50 years, with a model that didn't work in the past. I think this is a whole set of motions, in my opinion, that show me that as the Valley, we're not all in this service at this point. And if we're not all in the service, then I almost wonder if we should be pausing. Because if we get another 8 months down the road and Beaver Creek opts out or some other area opts out, I think we've wasted our time. From my perspective, it's all in or all out. And if it's all out, then fine. Then we can't build a pool right now. If the Valley doesn't want it, the Valley doesn't want it.
Did you want to comment on that, CEO?
They're all valid points, and I think this is why, from a staff perspective, we feel that this is the best exploration forward. Is that I really appreciate that this board has first created the space to allow for the discussion, because there were early positions around aquatics, but we allowed the outreach to occur. And I think with that outreach, what we're seeing is that in each one of the steps, we're taking those steps in line with the values that each director has expressed. And so there are some directors that were very directive about wanting to do exactly what the public was asking for. And so we followed a process that would help us gauge that. And to their credit, they are following those steps because the public has said, yeah, we endorse the next step. And so all we're trying to do is make sure that as we take each step, and even though it's a slow step, and we hope it doesn't amount to nothing, we're really hopeful that it amounts to building unity. But what we're also hearing is that for some areas, they're only willing to take a step towards that unity if they feel they have a full voice in that process. And that just means we're moving slower, and we're very cautious about how we engage and how we share information. But so far, knock on wood, that has been very good, and the public has been shaping this process. And it could be that we end up in 2026 going, well, we're exactly where we thought we were. We could have saved 2 years. But the reality is right now is from our perspective, we feel that these slower steps are helping build.
Dr. Minions.
I appreciate that. I just think this is not the proper way to move forward as a region. And I personally think we should be taking off the table the option of just paying more at the door. I find that option somewhat offensive. The whole region, I mean, currently, I remember actually a conversation at City Council like 8 or 9 years ago where one of our councillors said, you know, I don't want to pay for a pool when we get to that point. I don't use it. And the conversation was, okay, there's lots of city services that I might not use or you might not use, but we all pay because that's how we build a whole community. From my perspective, I think this is either a service for the Valley or not. And, you know, the multiplex model where we have one area that didn't contribute to building it makes no sense. There's kids who live in Beaufort who play hockey. I certainly know there are. It was an inequitable model that was sort of like a half attempt to get there at the time. And I just worry that we're following that model again. It wasn't the right path forward then. It's not the right path forward now. It got us the multiplex, but it got it in a way that kind of just furthered this perpetuation of not being a Valley that works together. So appreciate that this might be the best way to move this forward, but I think it opens us up to a lot of potential risk for this having been a wasted time. It certainly opens us up to specific area directors advocating to their community members to vote to not pay for it. And we've seen some of that. So that's a concern for me. I've jokingly said I'll advocate to my community members to vote against it then, because I think that's a funny thing to consider the city not contributing. But why should the city contribute any more than any other area for a service that is for all of us? So I think I'm not overly optimistic about us getting to a point of being able to move forward altogether. And my personal feeling is if we don't move forward altogether, we shouldn't move forward at all. Thanks.
May I ask a question about that? If we have this initial referendum to create a service and then say an area opts out, then at that point, can we just say, okay, pause, this is it?
Yeah, we're really trying to build this so that with every step, we're left with another decision point. And so that's why we've structured it this way, where ultimately people would have a say. And it really boils for staff. The perspective is, let's make sure that we fill up the right information so when people see it, they have the ability to make the informed decision. It could be that paying at the door doesn't make sense, but we asked the question because we wanted to test to see what people were thinking about in terms of the alternatives. Because when we do cost something out, if we were to be fair, and if you were to truly represent an estimate of what any area opting out would pay, it would be good to put an estimate of what that would be. Like, what would it mean if a swimming lesson that ought to cost $50 cost $150 to be equitable if you weren't paying into service? And then now you have a family of 3 children, your $150 to teach your kids to swim is now almost $500. Is that reasonable? And I think once you put numbers to concepts, people can better gauge and say, no, I don't like that decision. I prefer something else. And it's kind of what we saw in the survey when we said, hey, do you think we should explore regional service? And 76% said yes. And that's across all areas, right? So I think the community is guiding us through the process. It is slow, and this board will, and independent councils will always be in a position to say, I don't like this. And if I don't like it, what are the mitigations to it? Knowing that the final mitigation is just saying no. You always have that right to say no. And that's what makes this project so very complex. It is not an easy project, and building consensus, I think, anywhere in this day and age is not simple. And so I do tip my hat to us for having the patience and going through, and I thank the community for continuing on through. And again, I ask that we trust the process for yet another step.
Thank you. I have Director Roth, then Director McClellan, then Director Cote. Director Roth?
Yes. First of all, I would like to note that it's really important that each area has an individual vote. I want to know what the people of Beaver Creek have to say. It's very important to me. That's who I represent. I don't represent the whole region. I represent the people of Beaver Creek at the boardroom table. Also, I'd like a recorded vote. And also, I want to note that this was a recommendation from the committee. We spent months going over this, and this is part of that recommendation. So it's important that we follow through. Thank you.
Director McClellan.
Yeah, I understand what Director Sherry Minions is saying. However, the animal that we have or the situation that we have is all different districts have that option, maybe even later, I don't know. But at this point they do. And so are they going to vote to become all part of it? And that, I believe, has to happen. They have to have each group, each area has to have a right to vote. The people in Beaufort who did not vote for the multiplex, I actually personally voted 2 or 3 times plus in favor of it, but I didn't live in Beaufort then. And I think that it worked well. The only problem being, as was mentioned, how much are you going to pay if you're not in? And I think that our CAO made a very good suggestion. It's got to be there. It's got to be up front, and it can't just be 50 cents. That doesn't work. However, if people want a pool, aquatic center, pardon me, I'm not allowed to call it a pool, and with all these features, it's going to cost money. And so then first decide you're going to do it, then decide how you're going to pay for it. But it's got to be, each individual group has to vote themselves in, I believe.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. I know that it should be an all in or all out situation. It seems to me that part of the process here has been skewed, where when we had a public consultation, there was 2 meetings on the same day, one in the city, one in Cherry Creek. I think I was the only person from Sprout Lake at that. There was very few participants. So the rollout hasn't been, as good as I would have expected. Participation hasn't really been good from the community. If I knew there was a lot more support from my community going forward, right now, with so many unanswered questions, I just have a real hard time moving forward on this. I'd like to see some more provisions from the staff regarding the governance and how this will be apportioned. I do want to know more about the cost of providing this facility and the operation. And like who would we be looking at running this? Because I don't want the regional district to do it. There's quite a few unanswered questions, and I know that we need to investigate all of these things to move it forward, but I just don't feel like we're there yet, close enough to make these next motions come forward. Thanks.
Director Sega?
Thank you very much. I see that there's a real difference just in terms of concepts. You've got community development, which Sherry is speaking to. Either you are a community and you support the concepts that your leaders are bringing forward, or you're an individual. And if you are an individual, but you belong to a community, respect that there has to be a community approach to shared costing, shared services. And the consensus model suggests that you do come together, but with that framework of cooperation, collaboration for the benefit of everybody, not the individuals, not the individual members that we are representing. So is this a community service? If it's going to be a private service and everybody pay your own share, then we're looking at a corporate model. Maybe you just want to invite a corporate entity in to manage the thing. So I'm just seeing too many individualist ideas impacting what should be community conceptualization.
Thank you. That was well said. Director Minans, just want to let you know, I did ask Daniel the same question when we started this process. I thought we were all in, we're all out. So I was kind of surprised to see that model. But I think if we're looking at just providing, do we want to provide the service or not? And then if areas opt out, then we stop at that point. So I'm correct on that, right? Okay. Director Minans.
Thank you. I just wanted to add that I think in our communication as we lead up to this point of whatever votes we're going to have, I think we need to be very clear that it is not a given that an area can opt out and the project will continue. I think that's absolutely critical. Because I've even heard from some of the directors over the last couple of years, on this board and on prior board, well, why would I pay for it? I don't have to pay for it now. And so I think that there's an expectation that the project will continue, whether specific areas opt in or opt out. And I want to be very certain that residents are not feeling that way. So if a resident is potentially being led to believe that they can opt out of the service and still enjoy the service because that's the benefit that they have right now, I think we need to ensure people are not having that expectation going forward. And that will be a critical part of the communications as we lead up to this project. Because from my perspective, we don't proceed if it's not the whole valley. I think the city, our taxpayers can't afford to continue to provide services that the regional district has chosen not to. And I know that we have a long history of those services where they should be regional services and they're not, and the city continues to provide them because they're important services. We don't need to get into specifics on that. I think directors know, and the city happily provides those services, but we can't keep doing that as costs continue to escalate. The split between taxes for an average home in the city of Port Alberni, average home in the rural areas, is just getting to be astronomical. And as we consider really large projects like this, I think it's really important that the city does not continue to take on projects for the benefit of the whole valley. So I just want to ask that as we approach this point, that point of having a referendum, that it's very clear that opting out from one area could very well lead to the whole project being canceled.
CEO?
Yes. So there's the short answer. Is I think the beauty of a referendum is that the question that would go to all the public has to be the same question. And so this is the table that would be talking about what that question is. As important as the question is the information that then goes out to support that question so that people can make an informed decision. And I think what we're aiming to achieve through this process is to ensure that people have the right information, including what is a reasonable what is a reasonable alternative. And if it really is a matter of, you know what, we're either all doing this or we're all not, that can be articulated in a very clear way. But what we've also heard from the public is that they're not prepared to say yes or no unless they have certain conditions. And for some communities, that condition has been, we want our voice as an individual referendum vote. And if that's a condition to considering the question, then we need to follow that path so that people feel that they've had the opportunity for the voice to be heard. It also means, though, that we come with the risk of, like you said, ending up in a no position where we feel like we wasted a lot of money and a lot of time. And that is the risk. And so far, I just don't know how we mitigate that risk without alienating people on the process that they asked be followed for their consideration. And so we're kind of damned if we do, damned if we don't. And in this case, staff is recommending that we take the slower, more arduous path to creating consensus, which means breaking each area apart first in order to assemble a greater whole. And that means that we run that risk. But it also means that now they're willing to entertain the question, and that's as important. So it's a tough one. We're just focused on process here.
Director Roth, then Director Sega, then Director Beckett.
Thank you, Daniel, for that. I agree. It's really important that the people decide. It hasn't ever been more important than now. We're talking probably $100 million when you add in the borrowing costs. It's a lot of money. So we can't take this and just say, oh, one all thing and everybody go for this. It has to be everyone given an opportunity. Also, if it does work out there, one area or two areas don't want in, there are alternatives. We don't have to be stuck on one thing. We can come up with other solutions. So thank you.
Director Sega, then Director Beckett.
I just wanted to respond to the whole concept of consensus model. Consensus model does not mean that you pick it apart and you get a position, you get a position, you get a position. Either you're working together as a community or you're not.
Thank you, Director Beckett.
I just wanted to follow up on Daniel's comment about risk associated with dollars and cents and finance. And I'm going to state the obvious. We also have a responsibility as directors and as a board to look to the future, appreciate and understand the value of this type of facility for generations to come. And in this day and age, with all of the challenges, mental health and physical fitness and all the rest of it, this is a service that we must consider with all due respect for future generations, your children, your children's grandchildren. So I appreciate everyone's concern from a financial standpoint, but we have to look at this. This is an incredible opportunity, and I want to make sure we spend as much time considering that aspect as we do about how we're paying for this. I'll be that very important. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Personally, I think I would be willing to move forward to the next step, and that would really help us gauge interest in the community. But if areas opt out, then I would say let's pause at that point. Is that a fair assumption for everyone? Director Cote?
Thank you. So I agree with a lot of the comments that have been said here. And yes, I think it is an all in or all out. I just need to make sure that I've been in a lot of things in the past where Sprout Lake pays by assessment based. And I'm protecting the property owners in my area from moving forward in that manner anymore. Anything that, especially with such a big ticket as this, I need to make sure that the governance and the financing is all in place before I start promoting this to my community, because I just can't, in right mind, promote something that is going to be unequitable to my community. So it's really important to get that part in place to move forward. We have, I said at the beginning, like there's more than just the aquatic center that we should be talking about. There's other services that the city provides. And I know that that's going to be a part of the question down the road. So I want to make sure that we're eyes open going into this as to what exactly the question is and where we want to go with this. And absolutely, everybody should have a say. I think that we need to go out to the community and get more input. But with some answers on how the governance, how it's going to be, how we could see that it's going to be run. We have had the discussion already that, the regional district doesn't really want to run this. So who's going to run it? Thank you.
Director did you have your hand up, Director Sparrow? Okay, Director Minutes.
Thank you. And just wanted to agree with a lot of the questions and concerns that Director Cote just expressed. I'm not at all opposed to everybody having a vote and all of the areas. I mean, obviously everyone has a vote, but all of the areas having an opportunity to express that they don't wish to proceed at the current time with the current information that's in front of them. I have an issue with the rest of us proceeding without them. So I would like to make an amendment to the proposed motion, adding an item G that would state, and that the project is automatically put on pause if all areas do not agree to opt in. And if there's a seconder, I'll explain further. Thank you. I think that from my perspective, this would add a lot of comfort that we are not going to end up in a position where we proceed without everyone being in. I've heard a lot of sentiments expressed that we want each area to be able to have their say, to have their voice heard, and that directors want to know how their areas feel. And I agree, we should all know how our areas feel. If our areas do not all agree to opt in, I think that's an indicator that we should pause, hear feedback, and probably rework the project to get it to a point where we can proceed altogether. So maybe that's a matter of it being brought to a couple referendums. I mean, the arena, I think, was 3 referendums. I just don't want it to go to a binding referendum of moving forward with the project without everyone being in. And maybe we never get to that. But I'm not okay with us moving forward with that separately. So from my perspective, adding this amendment would still allow each area to be counted on their own and us to know if everyone is prepared to move forward together or not. If they're not, we then reevaluate if we're not moving forward, or if we have additional work to do to hear concerns of residents from areas that are not currently supportive. So I think it covers my concerns as well as regional district directors' concerns. Thank you.
Is there any comments on the amendment? Already seconded, yeah, for discussion, yeah. Okay, so we have an amendment you want to read that back, Heather?
So item G was added, and that the project is automatically put on pause if not all areas provide support through the referendum. Did that capture it? Okay.
All in favor of the amendment? Any opposed? Motion carried. So are we ready to vote on the whole motion, Director McClellan?
Was there not another amendment or was that made into the motion?
That was made into the motion.
So the way it's reading now is it will be a referendum as we refer to them. And whatever else it was, that's for Beaver Creek.
Yes. Director Roth.
I just wanted to remind that I asked for a recorded vote. I'm just not sure if that was
Yes.
recorded. Okay, thank you.
Director Sega.
I think it would really help if you reframe the question, not about who's going to pay for this, as who wants this as a benefit to every child and every senior in your community. I think you're getting hung up on this whole who's going to apportion payment. Whereas, of course, I don't want to pay. I'm sorry, I'm not going to use it, but do I want Johnny down the street to use it? Yes, I do. So I think the focus on the money apportionment needs to change, and it needs to be more of, is this a valuable service that you would like to see for your people in your community?
I'm sure there'll be lots of discussions on that moving forward, but thank you so much. Okay, so everyone's clear on the amended motion. I'd like to call the question. All in favor? Oh, keep your hands raised for Heather, please. Director Sega, Director McClellan, Director Steer, Director Hager, Director Minions, Director Sparrow, Director Roth, Director McEwen, Director Beckett, Director Johnson, Director Mustangelo. Any opposed? Did you vote for or against, Director Cote?
I didn't vote, so I guess that's affirmative.
Okay. Motion carried. Thank you. So now we're on to planning matters. I am going to leave the room for a few minutes and Director Steer will be taking the position of the chair.
Yeah, I should get up and move. The exercise. Great, and I'll just wait for Director Haggard to leave the room. Great, so we'll proceed with agenda item number 10 on planning matters. And the first one on the agenda is for, well, it's for electoral area directors, so that's good. I don't get to participate. The first item on the agenda is a rezoning application, Planland 2787 Alberni Highway. Okay, across the room there, I suspect you will be the one doing the presentation.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to follow aquatics. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
So this application is a rezoning application in the Cherry Creek area, as has been noted, at 2787 Alberni Highway. The applicants intend to rezone the subject property from a winery and cidery district to a new highway commercial C4A district to allow for a range of commercial uses, commercial retail uses on the property. The applicants had previously operated a wine retail shop from the site. The application includes an amendment to the Cherry Creek OCP as well to facilitate the commercial rezoning. This application has been considered by the Cherry Creek Advisory Planning Commission at 2 different meetings. Following their initial discussion, the applicants revised their proposal to remove the potential for any gas station at this site, to limit subdivision and to require increased setbacks from neighboring residential properties. The amended proposal was then supported by the APC at their last meeting on February 12th. This rezoning application would require a public hearing as it includes an OCP amendment to land use designation, giving the development permit guidelines that are in place to regulate the form and character of the future commercial development and the broad support provided in the OCP for the expansion of commercial uses along the highway corridor. Staff recommend that the board proceed with first reading of the bylaws at this point and initiate the public hearing process. I'm happy to answer questions.
Great, thank you, Alex. If there are any questions from the board? Director Sparrow, would you like to read the, there's a few here, so.
Thank you for that. On your recommendation that the bylaw P 1475 Cherry Creek Regional Community Plan Amendment bylaw be read for the first time.
Thank you. Director McClellan, I'll call question. All those in favor? Motion carried.
That bylaw P 1476 Regional District of Alberni Lake Zoning Text Amendment bylaw be read for the first time.
Seconded, Director Seega, thank you. I'll call question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried.
That bylaw P 1483 Regional District of Alberni Lake Zoning Atlas Amendment bylaw be read for the first time.
I'll call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried. So you hand.
That a public hearing for bylaws P 1475, P 1476, and P 1483 be delegated to the Director, Electoral Area F, the alternate director, or the chairperson of the regional district.
Thank you, Director McClellan. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried.
That the board of directors confirm the adoption of bylaws P 1475, P 1476, and P 1483 are subject to approved from the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure as the property less than 800 meters of a controlled access highway, and B, being the technical reputable agency requirements.
Second, Director Seega, thank you. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried. Next up on the agenda item is looks like a memorandum in bylaw 1484 for 5447 Maybell Road.
Thank you, Director Steer. This is a public hearing that was held on February 15th for a rezoning application in the Cherry Creek area. The property owner has applied to rezone their property to acreage residential RA3 district in order to subdivide the property into 3 lots. The RA3 zoning would support a 0.24 hectare minimum lot size for subdivision. There were a total of 33 letters of public correspondence that were received at this public hearing, in addition to the 17 letters that were already received by the board on October 11th. The appendices attached to the public hearing minutes include all of the letters that were received during the notice period ahead of the hearing, the agency referral responses, a letter from the Cherry Creek Waterworks District, and an assessment from a registered on-site wastewater practitioner. The public hearing report and the detailed minutes are presented for the board's consideration, and the staff recommendation at this point is for the board to proceed with second and third readings of the bylaw. Thank you.
Great. I'll look to the board if there are any questions. If not, Mr. Sparrow, would you like to proceed?
Well, thank you for that. Well, welcome to Cherry Creek and the public hearings. They had a lot of discussion both ways going about this. He did apply and receive a 0.2 per hectare subdivision already once before he went back and tried doing it for the second part of the same property. Still in the second public hearing. But I think the total public hearing, the first time they were in agreement with the first subdivision, and now they seem to change their mind on the second part with the same side. But I'd like to proceed with the reading of the motions as carried. If you have a question before I do? No.
Director McClellan?
Yeah, is this supported by you and people in Cherry Creek? I'll be supporting it as long as you guys want that. That's all I want to know. I see a bit of a conflict in the letters. That's all.
You're right. The first time he subdivided this, he was doing 0.6 acre with the back of his lot for his mother-in-law to build or live on to build or to build as another way. And then that got carried through. They didn't want the carriage homes in the middle put on. That was a big thing last time. So we removed the carriage homes. He's now trying to subdivide again some middle portion, so they have 3 lots. And now the community, the same one that supported him the first time, is not in support of this the second time. I'm not quite sure what happened there, but other than I think there's enough community support for this, and to a point, if he actually applied right now, he probably would get it through with the new laws coming in, I believe. So that's where I'm at, unless I'm incorrect in that one.
Nope, that's fine. I don't have anything else to add. Thank you.
Okay, come on, guard. So I think the community mainly supported this, yes. So I'll read the motion for the first time. That the board of directors receive the public hearing report.
Second, Director Seaga. Call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried.
That the board of directors receive the public hearing minutes.
Second, Director Seaga. She got her in there. Yeah, we'll take it. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried.
That bylaw P1484 Regional District of Vernon Lake zoning atlas amendment bylaw be read a second time.
Director McClellan, thank you. All those in favor? Motion carried, seeing none opposed.
And that bylaw P1484 Regional District of Vernon Lake zoning atlas amendment bylaw be read a third time.
Second, Director Seaga. Call the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, motion carried. Great. Thank you all. You're going to go. I was going to go get it because I'll go to the bathroom.
Great conversation.
Well, that's the good part about that.
I know. Okay, next on the agenda is liquor primary license structural change for Sprout Lake Landing, 10695 Lakeshore Road. And Alex, you're speaking to this?
Yes, please. Thank you. Sprout Lake Landing has applied to the Provincial Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch to expand the existing liquor licensing they have to add 2 additional outdoor areas on the property located at 10695 Lakeshore Road in Sprout Lake. The existing licensing allows for 86 patrons indoors within the Drinkwaters Lounge and within the attached decks and a small grass area below the decks. The expanded outdoor license areas that the property owners have applied for would include capacity for an additional 300 people with 100 guests on the upland side adjacent to Bella's Cafe between Lakeshore and the highway, and 200 guests on the lakefront side in the fenced grass area northeast of the hotel. Now, liquor license applications are referred to local governments, and the ACRD has the option to either conduct its own public input process, whether by neighbor mail-out, by public hearing or referendum, or the ACRD has the option to opt out of the process and have the LCRB conduct their own public input. The board can provide options of support or non-support that can be provided back to the LCRB. I would highlight that if the board is considering denying the request to expand the licensing, the board's policy is to defer a decision on the application and to invite the applicants to address the board to speak to why the matter should not be denied. And I also just want to clarify one of the points in the staff report about zoning. A condition of the C2 zoning, which applies to the land that is adjacent to the cafe, requires that all business be conducted within an enclosed building with exceptions for parking, loading, and display facilities. So the proponents have applied to license this area for up to 100 guests, and any outdoor liquor service in this area would require either a rezoning or a temporary use permit to proceed. So if a referral response is provided to the LCRB, the regional district would highlight the zoning requirements on that portion of the property at that time. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Director Cote.
Thank you. Just get my note here. So I want to make a motion to, at this time, that the Board of Directors dispose to deny this liquor primary license referral application. Prior to do so, the board wishes to offer the applicant the opportunity to present their own case as to why this matter should not be, why this should be supported. That would be my motion, but I just want to also speak to this. This is all outdoor liquor serving, and they're in their report, they're saying that they could have in front of the Sprout Lake Landing, 2,553 people. And right beside the little store, 634 people standing, which to me, that is a rave. There's no parking in this area. So people would be parking on either Lakeshore Road or the highway. In a different context, if this was on the corner of Faber Road and the highway is only 60 kilometers in that place, but it's just as busy on that corner as it is on the corner where they're proposing to increase the outdoor provision for liquor, serving, standing room, 100 people beside the store. That would be elbow to elbow, I'm sure. In front of the Sprout Lake Landing, noise travels. So what is their proposal here? Are they planning to have like live music out in front there? The noise travels on the lake very easily. And there's a fire department that is right next door that would require emergency access through that. Also in their application, there is a picture of their application actually going right across Lakeshore Road. So I'm not sure how that works, but they don't own the road. And that would block a lot of people. I really don't like the idea of having alcohol outside. And people wandering the access to the highway right there at 80 kilometers, and people drive much faster than that. It's a dangerous area. In comparison, also the Fish and Duck also provide a liquor service on the lake. They are very respectful to the neighbors. They have a deck, but there's no live music out there. Everything is kept inside. And they're shut down by 11 o'clock. And they're very respectful to neighbors. So just want to put that on, and I made my motion. Thank you.
Director Steer,
Yeah, I'll second the motion and like to provide comment.
go ahead.
Great, thank you. So thank you, Director Cody. I will approach this from a slightly different perspective that will primarily be focused on public health and safety, and why I'll support your particular motion. I just want to bring to the attention of the board here, and I'll be bringing up in a later meeting, where one of the, we just had a presentation from our medical health officer, and what was indicated there, and has been indicated for several years, the number one public health and safety issue in our region is alcohol and alcohol consumption. And one of the big policy recommendations that comes out from every organization, I happen to work for one of them, the Canadian Institute of Substance Use Research, the World Health Organization, the list goes on. One of the major policy recommendations is to, in terms of population level deconsumption of alcohol, is to look at things like access and availability. And so one of the primary areas that we as a local government have the ability to make those kinds of policy decisions on are in this particular area. I won't go into the statistics, but just to give you an idea of in British Columbia, last year alone, there were over 160,000 ER and hospital visitations directly related to alcohol, as well as 2,600 deaths directly related. We know it is a carcinogen. It's a group 1 carcinogen as defined by the World Health Organization. Also, if that's not enough, the economic impacts that in 2023 statistics, there was a net deficit to the provincial government of $768 million. That's the revenues that come in through the taxation, and then the money that goes out in terms of the harms that have been created through that. I'd also like to emphasize also the public safety aspect of that increase. Without question, the RCMP have indicated clearly that alcohol is one of the prime concerns. And when we add access and availability to this extent, we have gone through this exact same process in Tofino and the submissions that we had from there, where that in fact, it will have an increase in the usage of alcohol and driving, so impaired driving issues. So for those reasons alone, I think it's imperative that local governments have the opportunity to be able to have input into these kinds of applications, specifically around this one where the number of the expansion is very significant. I'll leave it there for now, and I'd like to maybe hear from the rest of the board on their opinion on this particular issue.
Alex, can I bother you? Do you have any comments in regards to Director Cote's concerns?
No, I mean, a lot of the liquor licensing responsibility lands with the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. Where local governments get involved is mostly in the public input process. So the regional district has the option to opt into the public hearing and either host their own public hearing, do their own neighborhood mail like we would do for a variance, or actually hold a referendum. If we don't choose to do that, the LCRB can still conduct their own public input process, and they'll listen to comments from the board, and those comments can be of non-support or support. They'll also look at the zoning of the land. So the authority to approve or deny these things really lands with the province in this case, and with our role being limited to the public input process, I think it's fair to if the board's considering denying this or not supporting it, the process is to defer a decision until the next meeting and invite the applicants to come speak to the matter, and I think that's a fair process.
Thank you, Director Roth.
I was actually going to ask that if that's what it meant, but I also am wondering if it's possible to perhaps recommend a lower maximum site capacity, and try to make it work for them. I feel like we're against them so much, and I would really like to help Sprout Lake Landing develop.
Director Minions.
Thank you. I appreciate the concerns around alcohol consumption, and I personally would love to see concerts at Sprout Lake Landing. I think that a lot of people, I think it's a beautiful venue, and I think it would liven up the lake a little bit, and not in a way that hopefully would be offensive if there were time limits, obviously, and regular bylaws, although I do know that's more of a challenge in rural areas. I'm perfectly happy to move forward with this, as was the staff recommendation. But that said, I also think there's value in having the proponents come in and speak to the application. I do think we need to be cognizant of liquor primaries and adding additional options for people to consume alcohol, given the statistics that do exist in our community. I think that can be balanced with businesses being mindful and providing high level kind of services. So I think this would be I think tourism wise, it would be nice for us to have a really great outdoor wedding venue, for instance. And there's not a whole lot of opportunities, especially at Sprout Lake. So I think there's value in considering this. I note the concerns around noise as well from Director Cote, and I think we have to consider all of that. So maybe the proper next step is to have them come here and tell us more about what they're proposing. Thanks.
Director Cote, then Director Sega.
Thank you. I just want to point out that there is a community hall just down the road on Lakeshore that would be able to accommodate weddings and music venues. But the location that Sprout Lake Landing is in is right in the middle of very close to residents. There is no parking there. There's parking at the hall. There's a beautifully renovated hall that's perfectly available down the road for weddings and all kinds of activities. Sprout Lake Landing is unfortunately built in the wrong place. For expansion, they're surrounded by water. They're in a very shallow bay. You can't use it for moorage, really. It turns up all the water that people drink right next door. It's a residential area. So unfortunately, I'd love to see tourism expand and that opportunity be given to people. But this is just the wrong location. It's very dangerous right there. Thanks.
Thank you, Director Sega.
Yeah, I just have to concur that, having been a nurse on the West Coast and seeing the alcohol and vehicle interaction, it isn't in the best interest of anybody. It's my understanding that if people do want to have a wedding venue there, they can apply for an independent liquor license, in which case that would be totally separate. And I think that would probably be a much better way to approach this at that particular area. The other point I kind of wanted to make is it's not very often that local government gets a say in what are federally mandated decisions. So where it's impacting local health and well-being in our communities, as was pointed out by Dr. Enns, they do not monitor septic systems. So if they go in improperly, they are going to contaminate their neighbors before we even know about it. So this is a situation where I think we have to be vigilant and support that there are other ways of, if people want to have special events, of getting that liquor license rather than just sort of opening it up like that. Sorry. Thank you.
Dr. Cote, did you have another question or did you get to take your hand down?
No, I put it up again. There's so many issues around this. There could be a band or disruption in the community every weekend or even more often than that if it opened up to having open alcohol outside all the time there. It would be a real hit to the community to have that happen. It would change the rural residential feel of that area. And it is a very busy corner, very busy. And I did read Director Sega's report from the health climate forum that she went to, remarks from Island Health on septic, and that it's our responsibility basically to make sure that something like this isn't going to be affecting the community, where you could have another, like they have 86 seats at the moment. They want to add another 300. It's just unacceptable in such a small area. And I would really ask that directors actually take a look at the area that they're proposing 100 people to be able to stand, because there's I was thinking that they had to have seats, because bars or whatever, you have a seat capacity. Well, outside they've taken that away. Like, for them to say that 634 people could stand beside the cafe, unbelievable. Another 300 or 2,553, and that they're only going to ask for 300. Like, it's just outrageous. Thanks.
Director Roth. Oh, we can't hear you, Director Roth.
Sorry. I just wanted to point out that I don't think it's up to us to decide on the capacity. And also, when we're talking about provincial health authority, I mean, we've got BC ferries that'll allow people to drive on and off the ferries and have alcohol consumption. So it doesn't kind of add up there. Yeah, I think it's, like was said earlier, it's up to us to make sure that whether we want to go in or out of a public process. And inviting Sprout Lake Landing is probably a really good idea to come and talk more about it, because it's not up to us. It's up to the liquor board on how many people would be allowed or the maximum site capacity. Thank you.
Alex, can I get some clarification on a comment you made earlier? If we deny this, do they automatically get an opportunity to come before the board, or do we have to change the motion and ask them to come?
No, I think what the motion says, it would defer a decision and then invite them to come to a subsequent meeting, and we'd be happy to invite them to the next meeting in March. That works.
Okay, can you read the motion that Director Cote made, Been so long, I forgot.
I believe it is that the Board of Directors defer the application for a structural change as it was presented and resolve that and defer the application to the next meeting and invite the applicant to speak.
Okay. Any final questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, next is Regional District of Nanaimo Shaping Our Future to 2040 Regional Growth Strategy Bylaw number 1874-2023. Alex.
Thank you. The ACRD has received a referral from the Regional District of Nanaimo for their proposed regional growth strategy bylaw. As an adjacent regional district, the ACRD must accept the bylaw by resolution prior to the RDN considering the regional growth strategy for adoption. The RDN boundary, as we all know, is adjacent to the mostly forest service lands on the east borders of the Beaufort and the Cherry Creek OCP areas. And the policies within the RGS bylaw do not appear to conflict with any of the neighboring lands within the ACRD. At this point, staff recommend that the board pass the resolution to accept the RGS bylaw as presented. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Would someone like to make that motion? Director Steer.
Make sure I get the right one here. That the Board of Directors accept the proposed regional district and Nanaimo Regional Growth Strategy Shaping Our Future 2040 bylaw number 1874-2023 as presented pursuant to section 436 of the local government.
Moved by Director Steer, second by Director Minions. Any final questions or comments? Director Cote.
Thank you. Just a question around the log train trail, because I know that the Nanaimo Regional District comes right up to the log train trail. So would there be any concerns around that? Thank you.
Yeah, the staff reviewed the regional growth strategy bylaw. There isn't a lot of policies that that impact the western boundary of the RDN. Most of the growth containment boundaries, or the nearest growth containment boundaries that they've identified, are in the Coombs Hilliers area. So no, I don't think that there would be any outright impact on the log train trail at this time.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is Planning Staff Report. Fisheries and Oceans Canada DFO request for input, marine finfish conditions of license review. Alex.
Thank you. Fisheries and Oceans Canada is engaging the community on a general marine finfish conditions of license review process. There's actually a letter received by BC Salmon Farming earlier in this agenda. The conditions that they are reviewing are those that are applied when they're considering individual finfish aquaculture license applications. Changes for the 2024 cycle include reviewing their interactions with seals and sea lions with their facilities, sea lice management, inventory accounting, use of some newer technologies, and an area-based aquaculture management program. So DFO is seeking input until March 8th, with the new license conditions expected to take effect July 1st. The report and correspondence from DFO are provided for the board's information at this point. Thanks.
Any questions or comments for Alex? Seeing none, could I get a motion that the Board of Directors receive Planning Staff Report A? Moved by Director Sparrow, second by Director Minions. All in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is staff reports, meeting schedule March 2024 and building report January 2024. Any questions for staff? Director Sparrow.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm reading the page 196, the building report. And I don't know exactly if I'm reading it right. It says year 2023, they did 10 inspections last year. Is that what it said? Or is it just got oops?
I'm happy to clarify that. So that number means 10 building permits issued to date in the same month. So in the month of January 2023, we issued 10 permits. Now it looks like the number we have here is 16 permits issued this year. But I can check into those numbers for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Could I get a motion the Board of Directors receive the staff reports A to B? Moved by Director Sparrow, second by Director Steer. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is committee reports. Parcel tax roll review panel meeting dated February 27th, 2024. Dr. Sparrow, can you give a verbal report, please, on our meeting yesterday?
Sorry, thank you for that. I missed that line. We had a quick report yesterday. There was no submissions from the public to go over the new parcel taxes area. It went quickly. There was 4 of us there total, and it all went well, I guess. I'm glad.
Thank you. Got to get a motion that these verbal reports A be received. Moved by Director Steer, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Next is member reports. 911 Corporation, Director Beckett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The meeting was held in Campbell River on January 26th. As we've discussed in today's agenda, there was the 3-year formalization of the cost apportionment and shareholders agreement. Ecom reported out some positive news that even though there's been an 11% increase in calls received by Ecom, they've had their best service level in 5 years, where 911 calls were answered in 5 seconds. So that's a huge improvement over the last couple of years. And the next generation 911 that we've heard about, which has to be in place by March 2025, is well en route for completion. And we're reminded that the province did kick in $90 million for the transition to the next generation system. And that's my report.
Thank you. Vancouver Island Regional Library, Director Cote.
Thank you. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago, AGM, and they had alternates included. So Director Estranglio attended also, and yeah, it was a good meeting. Nothing really to report. And I know that the library attended the last board meeting and presented to the board. Thanks.
Thank you. Alberta Valley Chamber of Commerce, Director Minions.
No report. They do have a board meeting tomorrow morning and a member meeting on Friday morning where we talk about the state of the city and all of the great initiatives going on. Thank you.
Dr. Minions is going to be headlighting speaking, so please everybody come in the den. 8 a.m. Air Quality Council, Director Sparrow.
Well, thank you for that. I think my report was done by the chairperson this morning, and he did a good job, so I'll refer it to him.
Thank you. ABICC, Director Cote.
Thank you. Our convention is April 12th to the 14th, and resolutions are in. We have a record, I think, 64 resolutions that came in this time, so great. We are have a few positions open on the executive, so if anybody's interested, you'll have to run off the floor, but I would really encourage that. Thank you.
Thank you. Twascan Public Advisory Group, Director Sparrow.
Well, thank you again. We had a meeting 3 weeks ago. I got some bullet point here for you. They did a CSA external audit completed last fall. There's excellent results. There's no compliances, which is non-meeting regulations, and there's no non-conformities, meaning no CSA or corporate standard violations. So they're both of them. There's still discussions occurring in the future APD sawmill right now. There's no details yet, but we're getting close to announcing it in the next week or two. There's lots of work with the WFP, Western Forest Products, First Nations, on development of integrated resource management plans for TFL 44. So we're going through that. The program of endorsement of forest certification is undergoing and some proposed changes. The public review period is underway to help do the forestry acts better. And the TPGA member satisfaction survey is completed and compiled. And the WICWAC Guardian Program, Indigenous Watchman, still continues for the expanded scope. So there you go.
Thank you. Is there any other reports from the board members? Director McClellan.
I don't have a report, but did we vote on the staff report on fisheries? Committee? Okay, I blinked.
It's been a long afternoon. I was quick. Okay, seeing no other reports, could I get a motion board of directors receives the member reports? Moved by Director Sega, second by Director Sparrow. All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. No unfinished business, no late business, question period. There's no one here from the public. Is there any questions from
Yes,
online?
there is.
Yay.
So there's no emails and there's nobody in the audience, but there are a couple of questions received in Zoom. So the first one is from Mike Lesowski. And he's referring to the pool because this question came in regarding the existing pool. So what will happen to the existing building? Will it be repurposed?
I think that's to be determined.
And there is another, this is a comment, not a question, but I'll just read it out. If the people want a referendum and an option to opt out, then it needs to be heard, Mayor Minions. The whole point of you guys are to represent the wants of the people. And Sam Higgs, Sam says that he's the GM of Sprout Lake Landing and is happy to answer any questions. And I believe that Fred Boyko is online and wants to also make a comment.
Can I get a point of order on that, Heather?
Yes.
When a director is online and his alternate is here, does the director that's online get to speak? I thought they weren't allowed to.
Correct. So Director McClellan is the alternate director. He is here to vote on any official business of the board. My understanding is that Director Boyko is representing as a member of the public, not as a director in what he is about to speak to. Have I got that correct, Daniel?
Yeah, although it's very hard to remove the hat. I mean, Director Boyko and I had this conversation, but he is there online.
I think that's kind of pushing the boundaries of the law here. Yes, we have. So what do we do? Because I think we've already made that ruling before, so I'm very uncomfortable having him speak.
So I'll turn on my microphone here. Sorry, Fred, we're having a conversation here on whether you're in or out. And as discussed, it was sort of a conversation around a director never really being a member of the public because you are a director. And so in terms of commenting as the public, it can be an awkward situation. And it's not a matter of your alternate leaving. It was just sort of in the comments of this meeting. So there's an off mic deliberation here that's going around. I'm not sure what the right answer is on this one. So yeah.
So I'll just say this. Let's just make this nice and simple. We'll have a very good spirited discussion next week, and hopefully we get an email about what it's going to happen this afternoon. Simple. That's all I got. Thank you.
I think that's.
I was just going to say
that. Do we need to wear our pink shirts next week?
Yeah. I'm very uncomfortable with that because we've made a ruling before, so I think we stick with our precedent. Okay, so no more questions from the public. Could I get a motion to adjourn? Moved by Director Spears, second by Director Sega. All in favor? Thank you very much, everybody, and I appreciate the respectful discussions we had today. It was difficult, but we got through it. Thank you very much.